Welcome to Ragin T, the podcast of rejects. And when I say rejects, who are we? We've got for ourselves myself, the host, TeaTime. I managed to work with some of the finest people on broadcast and still couldn't get invited on the podcast, which is why I have to make one of my own. Then, of course, we've got Ragin right next to me. He's going to be my co-host, former coach of TSM, former coach of Mouz Sports, former coach of a lot of teams. As you can hear, there's a lot of formers here. It's not a lot of current. So, if you want to reach out to him and watch your project burn as TSM did, then, you know, there's his contact. There's his contact in the description. He needs to get paid as well. And while we're talking about rejects, the man who went and did his first ever international LAN event in the regional esports res championships, 300k LAN, tier 2 teams coming left, right, and center, top of the world. 2 months later, dished by his co-caster. Zerpher is going to be our guest for the day. Zerpher, I know it's been a rough time for you, but how does it feel to be brought into the circle of losers?
I mean, I knew there was always going to be a spot for me, but yeah, it's been a rough start to the year, man. You know, like dropping my co-caster, dog died. It's been rough. No power for 4 days. This January has been one to actually remember, honestly.
Can you be honest? Did Ted kill your dog on the way out just to make sure you wouldn't be able to emotionally recover?
He could have. You know, it definitely could have happened. But yeah, no, it's been an interesting start to 2025, definitely.
We're going to be making this a very straightforward show. We all like to talk shit. We all like to have fun. We're going to be talking about everything that's going on in Counter-Strike from week to week. And, you know, maybe talk some shit, have some fun, be wrong about some things, be right about some things. We're going to figure it out as we go along. First of all, hot topic for everyone and for me in particular as well. Cluj Napoca 2025, PGL's first Tier 1 event of the year, has been announced in terms of the teams that are in attendance. And this was a controversial announcement. In case anyone's wondering, I will be linking everything down in the description. I might actually have a graphic over here as well at some point to open it all up. But for you guys, I would recommend that, you know, just pop open the Liquipedia while I'm talking and you can look through the teams that are invited. But most of all, there's only a couple of top 10 teams that actually accepted the invite. Mongols, Faze, Mouz Sports, Falcons, and Furia, which leaves out some of the best teams in the world. Spirit, major winners. G2, one of the biggest brands in Counter-Strike, one of the biggest brands in the world. Vitality has one of the greatest players in the world, making it all three of the greatest players of Counter-Strike in 2024, which is to say Donk, Monazi, and Siuhy will not be attending Cluj Napoca. Then Liquid and NaVi as well, having taken themselves out of this tournament. While I'm talking about who's not attending Cluj, can I talk about who's not subscribing to my videos? Please, if you're here, you've enjoyed it this far, like the video, comment on the video, subscribe to the video. I just want to start things off with you, Ragin. This is an arena event. This is, you know, it's an interesting place to be in a situation like this where we have potentially a 15,000-seater arena, something like that. It's in the heart of Europe. There aren't that many events before and after it. And there's this many teams rejecting the invite. Were you surprised to see this?
I mean, I think it's just a part of the VRS circuit, right? Because now you see so many more events. Teams are prioritizing some events over others. I don't know much about it. Like, of course, it's happening behind the scenes, but I do believe that those teams who used to work, like, had a partnership with ESL and Blast, like, are they not still having some sort of partnership and deal, like, maybe hidden behind the scene, like we don't know about, of course, even if it's against the rules, like, I don't know, but it could seem like that, right? Since you're rejecting potentially such a big event. At the same time, though, if you want to be more not so conspiracy theories about it, then you could just say, well, the schedule is fully packed, right? And you have so many tournaments to go to, and you could in theory go 1 week to the next tournament, right? So I think at some point you are gonna see these rejections to some tournaments. So I'm not really surprised it happens. I'm a little bit surprised of the way it happened, but also made me think, like, when you lose like the top 3 teams in the world, maybe even top 5, right? And they're not gonna be there. It's also less points for them to be able to gather, but more points to lose, right? So let's say number 1 team is there, but 2, 3, 4, 5 is not there. Suddenly there is a lot more at stake, right, regarding the VRS ranking. So yeah, I don't know. I'm not surprised by it in the end, I would say.
But is there an Zerpher, is there an overfixation? I will call you Ted like a couple of times in the entire podcast. That's going to happen. I'm just letting you know right now. I'm sorry to rub salt in your wounds. Is there and please, by the way, guys, jump in whenever, okay? Like interrupt me. I'm gonna interrupt you guys as well. Is there an overfixation on the major? Because I'm thinking, bro, everyone's saying VRS this, VRS that. It's a $1.25 million event that isn't clashing with another event. There's Katowice ends on the 9th of February, okay? So with this starting on the 14th, you probably have to be there for media day by like 12th to 13th, I suppose. It's not a very long flight from Katowice to Cluj Napoca, if that's what you're going in for. It's an arena event, and you're skipping out on it as a team. I mean, for context, there are only 6 arena events that are going to take place in the first season of Counter-Strike right now this year, until after the major. 6 isn't that many.
No, not at all. I'm just wondering, how much money are these guys actually earning that they're turning down, a $1.2 million tournament? Like, it's insane. Like, I'm looking at it, I'm kind of going, all right, I was expecting maybe to see 1 or 2 teams.
Yeah.
But, the top seeded team, the top rated team there is Faze. And I'm kind of looking and kind of going, like, where are the other 4? And I mean, it does kind of make sense if you're talking about that VRS. There is more points to lose and all, but like if you're looking at that field and let's say you are a G2 that accepts, or if you're a Spirit that accepts it, you're thinking, well, we can just walk this event, we can just lock in our spot pretty much already, that we are going to be number 1 in the world all the way in the lead up to that major. I just don't know. It is just a little bit of a head scratcher. Like it just doesn't make sense that we're seeing so many of the top 10 just saying, yeah, do you know what, we're not even bothered. We're not arsed even heading over. As you said, there's nothing else on. What else are they going to be doing? Yeah, they can maybe take a little bit of a break, but it just seems to me that like that money is just absolutely ridiculous to be turning down.
I mean, it's not just the money.
I think just to add one thing there, like it might not be like a lot of tournaments, right? But let's say you go to Katowice, right? Then you are there for potentially 2 weeks, right?
Yeah.
Approximately.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe before you had a boot camp, that's 3
Sure.
weeks gone, right? Then you come home. Maybe you want 1 or 2 days off. You want to also spend some time home. Then maybe you want to do another boot camp, which a lot of teams are doing. Then before you looked around, it's like 5 weeks, and you've been gone for 4 of them, right? And that's not even taking into another event, right? So I think it might look like, oh, it's not a lot, but it's actually it's way more than we think. Like when you just put it like that, right? You see Eternal Fire, they were in Copenhagen, directly from Copenhagen to Katowice, and I know that they were bootcamping before. I just talked with Voxic not so long ago, and he went to bootcamp, and so they were sitting bootcamp first, then they went to Denmark, then Katowice. That's like 3-4 weeks straight instantly from them, right?
Okay, but
they're not home, right? So
but Ragin, I'm gonna ask something very clear cut. Why not skip EPL? Right, like your event stops at the 23rd of February. After that, the next like big event is going to be Blast Open Lisbon, if you're not counting EPL. Blast Open Lisbon is also an arena event. It starts on the 19th of March. So if you're finishing up on the 23rd of February, assuming you are going to the finals, right? There's only 8 teams that are going to be in playoffs playing that second week. But let's say you're in the finals, you've won the entire event. You have a month off if you want to take it at that point. It just feels very strange to me that you would choose to skip an arena event. For context to everyone who's watching, there's not that many opportunities to train for the major. Like, I think this is one of the things that people always forget when they're always focusing on the VRS rankings and this and that. The top 32 teams go to the major right now in the world, right? If you're not in the top 32, this is not going to be a concern for you regardless. You're probably going to be making it there. Of course, you want to be in the direct invites. You don't want to go to the major regional qualifiers and the like. But it just feels to me like such a wasted opportunity to even practice in an arena environment when you're not going to have that. And looking at some of the lineups that the new teams have, we don't have everyone having that sort of pedigree, right? Like, for me, it makes sense that, hey man, if Spirit wants to skip it, Spirit probably, going to be top 2 at Katowice, top 4 at Katowice at worst. I understand if they want to skip it. Why is the G2 skipping it? G2 has Heavygod, Mouz. These guys don't have that kind of experience. Why is G2 skipping out on like even European presence like that?
I think though, like what you're saying about, the skipping out in practice, I think that's probably why teams are kind of looking at an EPL and saying, all right, well, let's go there, because there is a lot of games in that schedule that you are going to be playing against, some decent level opponents. Yeah, maybe it's not in that environment that you're going to get in Cluj Napoca, but still, like, you are going to be playing way more probably there than you will at that event. So in terms of that, like, proper like practice in. I think maybe they're kind of looking at it from that point of view, but still, I don't think it makes much sense to me. Yeah, you could say when they're not being at home, that's great, but you know, like that's a great argument for them to, you know, want to, okay, let's just take a break before we go into our next big event. But the schedule just doesn't look as packed. Like if you're comparing it to the second part of the year, like, you know, that September, October, November, like that's going to be absolutely mental for the player schedule.
The other thing is also just for me, I also think you're giving a lot of other teams a chance to glow up in a lot of ways, because when you look at the teams that are actually attending, it's the Mongols, it's Falcons, it's Mousesports, Furia, all 4 of these teams, and Faze to some extent, all 5 of these teams, which are the top 5 teams going into the tournament, they're all teams that need that sort of experience to get their roster together. Mouz will be having their first event with Spinx. Falcons obviously have so much work to do in terms of keeping the project going and keeping the project leveling up to a place where, you know, you can say, hey, Nico and Magisk are going to be able to provide everything that they need for this project. It just feels like you're giving so much room to the other teams to grow as well, that it seems short-sighted in a competitive sense, especially when you consider there's a lot of people who are talking about this, and Ragin, you probably know more about this than I do, so please do, you know, tell me. The sticker sales haven't done that well from Shanghai, right? Like I've heard that those are exceptionally low compared to what people are projecting. The major is a financial windfall, but it's not the same kind of huge money coming in that everyone was saying at Paris. Oh my God, there's $1.5 million for everyone to be picking up. It's not the same thing as it was once upon a time.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know like the final sales. Like what I heard, the sales was like there was like during the major, and that was like fairly low compared to what it was like earlier. But like as far as I know, like the sticker sales go up anyway when they comes on sale and everything, right? So I'm not 100% sure. In the end, it's about prestige, sticker money, etc., right? And I just took a look on the events, right? Like you said, like yeah, it might be like a week after Katowice finish, but if you're a top team, you expect to be in the final, right? That is your expectation, right? Or at least top 4. That means you are going to be there until minimum 8th of February. That gives you 6 days to be in Romania again, right? Where it starts, and you have to be there media day and stuff, right? So that's probably you have to be in Romania, let's say 11th of February. So that's even less time, right? Like that's 3 days. No, 2 days plus travel, right?
I think
You're
12th of
basically
February,
home,
but yeah,
right?
around that much, yeah.
Yeah, well, let's just say 12th February, this is the media day. You finish Katowice at 9th. You're not going to go home the 9th. You're going to go home the 10th, right? So you go home the 10th. You have to go home. We have travel again 12th, right? You're basically home for 1 day. And like I mentioned before, you had the blast before. You had maybe a boot camp. You had the long Katowice, right? So I understand like the that people are saying no to some events, and there is going to be a lot of events coming up no matter what, right? So it's not like they're going to be starving anything. But I also see the other side, like you're saying, like there is a big arena event, there is a lot of things to be gained here, but I think it's a really, really tough situation, and I don't know what situation the teams are in, right? Like the teams are all different, right? If you're called Spirit, well, you just won the what's it called, the blast thingy thing, and they're heading into Katowice now, and they're probably also gonna aim to win that. I think it's fine that you slow down a little bit at that team, right? And I think the same goes for Vitality and stuff. And again, like you mentioned with the EPL, it makes me think a little bit more like why is people not skipping EPL, which is actually like, I mean, as a player, it's fine to be there. Like nice hotel, you go there, you play in a.
It's in Stockholm this time.
Oh, Stockholm. Okay,
Yeah,
I didn't know
not in
actually.
Malta,
But,
so you're
okay,
going to Sweden. You're not in like chilly sunny
Oh,
Malta.
you're not even a nice. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
But I think also like that has some, like the EPL has some history. There is something to that, right? And I think still there must be some partnership thing going on. Like since you are downvoting one event in arena to potentially EPL, right? I don't know. I'm not gonna say here people are doing it, but it looks funky to me. Let's say like that.
You should have told me. I would have brought my tinfoil hat.
Bro,
if we were
please. I didn't know either. Regin's like,
that's the thing, right? Like we don't know, right? That's the thing.
Yeah, no.
Regin's started like ever since I cheated. Now I think everyone's cheating. What?
Yeah. You're not?
What? You're not taking advantage? No. But I think what I do want to focus in on is the Regin, like you said, it's different from team to team. And I really want to talk about NaVi, both as a team overall, but also in the context that they're skipping Cluj Napoca, because I think NaVi is a really interesting discussion point, given what we just saw from them at Bounty as well. Given, their stature in World Counter-Strike right now. They kind of screwed out of the major. Alexi's obviously the IGL of the year for 2024. Blade is the coach of the year for 2024. There's no doubt about that in my mind whatsoever. But they made no real reasonable changes to the lineup sort of as we came forward. Now they're going to be, kicking themselves out of Cluj Napoca over here as well, when they have undoubtedly the greatest Romanian player to probably ever play Counter-Strike, at least in my lifetime. I've never seen anyone better than Ima. He probably wants to be out there in front of the crowds. It's top 8 teams going there as well as Zerpher, right? So it's not like NaVi are just going to be missing out on the playoffs and not even have a chance for that. You think for them in particular, it makes sense? It's been a bad bounty. Who knows what this Katowice is going to look like? NaVi aren't in the greatest position.
I don't know. Like it wasn't really too bad of a bounty, to be honest. Like I don't really think that they did that badly. Look, look, we're gonna disagree on a few things, but I actually don't think they played that terribly. Look, I think obviously when you're making the point about Ima as well, that's gonna be a real kick in the teeth for him. Like he would have loved to be playing there. But I don't know. Maybe
NaVi, I just looked through this one. I need you to defend this one, okay? Because NaVi, They beat Imperial Female, whatever. We'll talk about that one later on. They beat Astralis, again, who gives a shit, right? Like, Astralis is in one of their worst stages they've ever been in. MIBR just beat them as well. NaVi, we're talking about NaVi's run at Blast Bounty, by the way, Ragin, where they beat Imperial Female, then they beat Astralis. Again, both of these are online matches, right? So, sure, fine, that's good stuff. Okay, then after that, who are they beating? Pain. How are they beating them? It's in a third map overtime on Mirage, which was supposed to be their signature map. They beat them 16-13. And then versus Spirit, it's a close Ancient, but even over there, it looked like Spirit was going to run away with Ancient, and Spirit did this with Donk not even necessarily being at his absolute prime form. That's where they lose. This is not a top level NaVi for me right now.
Not a top level NaVi maybe, but I don't think they played that bad. Like I still don't think they played that badly, and that's because if I'm looking at that Pain result, like I rate Pain pretty highly. Not maybe on the NaVi level, but I do think that they're actually going to be a very pleasant surprise.
Is Pain a top 8 team?
They could be.
No. Are Pain a top 8 team in the first season of CS in 2025?
Hold on, I'll have to get up the rankings to see exactly who's in that top 8. I definitely think they could be. They're top 10 for me anyway at the moment. They're
Rachel, I need you to jump in on this one. Are Pain a top 8 team to you? Oh, you're muted, by the way, I think.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Talking here alone. I think top 8 is really hard to kind of quantify who is there. I would probably say top 3 is fairly okay, easy, but when you go down the rankings, it's really difficult because I feel like the gap is so narrow. I actually rate Pain really highly as well. I think I'm not saying they're a top 5 team, but I am saying that they're playing really good Counter-Strike, and NaVi is good and everything, right? Don't get me wrong, but I think there is one team that's just clearly better than everyone else, and that's Spirit.
Yeah.
But I think the rest is not. The gap is not that big.
Between 2 and let's say 10, I actually don't think there's that much between any of them. But that's what it feels like that this season is going to boil down to, is it's going to be almost a best of the rest, because Spirit are just, for me anyway, they're that much ahead of absolutely everybody. It's just going to be a mess in that top 10 to see actually who's going to be the second best team, because to be honest, I really don't see anybody getting close to the Spirit side.
But the conversation I want to have about NaVi is, was it a mistake for them to not make a roster change coming out of last year? And I know this sounds absurd that they were the team of the year and everything, but I'm looking at all of these other teams that have made changes, right? You're looking out towards the Vitality, arguably have upgraded. You're looking out towards the Faze that I think definitely has upgraded. Rops was kind of garbage for most of the year outside of the major playoffs in terms of what his normal standards are supposed to be. Eternal Fire have upgraded. Eternal Fire are becoming a legitimate top 4 to 5 team, in my opinion. All of this stuff is happening. Are NaVi still going to be able to maintain relevance in top 3? I just think this is, plus they're giving up these big events. So I just feel like I'm questioning what's going on with the NaVi camp.
So let me ask you, would you say like okay, no, let's go back. So you said you want to make a roster change. Let's start there and say
And
who
I'm
do you
asking,
want to
should
swap out?
there have been a roster move being made on
Yeah,
Navi's
that's what
side?
I'm not sure you would like unless you could get a Nico or something. Then who would you get, right?
Why can't you get an eco?
Well, he already signed with Falcons, most likely.
Well,
Right?
he did, but this is where I'm curious about. Like, Navi has gone international. They have the money. Why are Navi not in competition for a Yimfat, for a Nico, or anything like that, right? Bit's obviously fantastic, so you probably don't want to replace him necessarily. He's also one of the only Ukrainian players left, so I understand that. But were Navi ever even in conversations with other teams? Were Navi ever even thinking like, hey, can we upgrade a JL into, someone else? Is there potential for a player to be signed? Could we maybe get like a Spinx on our team? Would that be a good fit or not? And because they obviously haven't, and I understand why, right? It still was the best team of the year. Will they be able to compete for top 3 right now? That's my only question, because in my head, I actually don't think Navi is going to be a top 3 team for the first 6 months over here. At all. I think that we're going to see a limit being reached for what Blade's system can do. Blade's system has been fully implemented. There's going to be some iterative changes, but all of these players are as meshed in as they're going to be. They've all been given a lot. We know who they are. If anything, I think these players are likely to have a slight dip in form, at least, in terms of players like JL, who I think their best things is, hey, there's our big game players. Big game players will have years on and off other than the greatest in the world. You think back to your flushes of the world, they have a year where, like, 1 or 2 events are doing all right. I just don't think that this Navi is going to have the firepower to deal with the upgraded lineups and to be a actual top 3 team in the first half year of 2025.
I think, like, to respond to that, like, I'm just thinking, like, on players who you wanted, right? Like, you don't want a Spinx, you don't want Yimfat. Like, you have Bit, right? So that doesn't make sense.
But Spinx doesn't have to replace him. Spinx would probably replace.
I mean, yeah, but I mean, like, he is better in these positions, right? If you look at it roles wise, right? I'm not saying he couldn't be a fit, but sure. Then, but it should be minus Immer then, right? You wouldn't take away JL, like, he's been having an amazing year, right? Like, I would not take him away for sure. But what I think he could use is like another player to rely on. So like an Elise could be fun to see on that team, right? That could be a fun pickup. But I think Elise, I don't know, he is like, when you look at him as a person and a player, I just don't see him in Navi. Like, I do see him in Faze. I just don't see him in Navi, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I can't really say why I feel like that, but it's just how I feel it. And besides that, then it's really hard for me to tell where are you going with, like, who are you gonna pick up. Where it's like, this is a clear upgrade, right?
Yeah, like, look, it is that kind of thing. It's like, who are they going to get in? And Emma probably would be the one to go if they were going to remove anybody. But who would you get in to replace? And also, I think if you remove Emma from that team,
Elise, if Elise was open to it, I would 100% do that.
If Elise was open to it, yeah. But you're also talking about JL, who was the MVP of that major.
He's the MVP of the first major. He's the reason why they didn't make it to the playoffs of the second.
Yeah, well, it could be down to contracts as well. You don't know, how long that they've actually signed. Do you? I'm not sure what the contract situation is.
If
this
JL was for sale, people would be interested in buying him, contract or not. I think there's no question about it. JL was also not signed in a position where he was like this super hot prospect either, so I doubt that this is going to be like the most expensive salary to trade around either or anything like that. I think you guys are putting a lot more faith in JL than I personally am. And I'm not saying JL is bad. I'm just saying, is JL going to be that consistent rifling star? And you need a rifling star. Okay, you need a rifling star. If without that, you're not going to be a top 3 team. Is JL going to be the guy to get Navi back to that height? I don't know, man. I don't think so. In fact, I think Imma's actually been doing pretty well. I think Imma's been getting better and better as time goes on in terms of his like very specific role. And I think when you look at the kind of players that were moving around, right, in this transfer market, Spinx, Rops, Elige, all of these players, you are in position to try and put a bid in for if you're Navi. So I just think, personally speaking, like, okay, fine, you don't make a roster move, but I still haven't gotten an answer from you guys. Is Navi a top 3 team? Like, can you say that Navi is a top 3 team at the end of this first season?
No.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
I think it's hard, but I would still classify them as a top 3 team.
Like,
okay.
It really depends though. Like, I'm looking at it now actually, and now that I'm kind of looking at it a little bit more, I'm kind of actually thinking they probably are. But the only reason I'm saying that is because Faze looked poor, Vitality
They've
looked
had
poor.
one tournament. Faze.
Yeah, look. Well, what am I going to meant to judge them off? You know what I mean? They've had one tournament, yeah, but like that is going to take time.
So
for them
FaZe
to
made the
catch
major
up.
playoffs with 4 of these players, and they replaced one of their weakest links in terms of role for role conversation since all of last year. And you think FaZe are going to be worse than NaVi on paper?
No, no, not on. I just think maybe Faze could take a little bit longer to click, and the same with Vitality as well. You know, when you are bringing in, you know, such a big player into the team, like sometimes it just doesn't work. It sometimes you might look at it and go, "That's a sick roster move. The roles work, this, that, and the other," but then all of a sudden there's problems elsewhere. And I'm just thinking if the likes of Faze and Vitality don't click instantly, which we didn't see from that first event, then NaVi are still a top 3 team. But this is still going back to the point that was made earlier that, you know, the gap between 2 and 10, you know, just isn't much. So I think to quantify anybody as a top 3 team is very, very difficult to do now.
But also let me, like, if you go back to what, like, why is it we are thinking that NaVi is so bad, right? Like, I mean, like, okay, they lost, they had a bad event in the Blast Premier World Finals, right? They lost to Astralis, which, in all fairness, is like, they lose to a team where you have no info on. Like, nowadays, it's all about having info on a team, right? Like, the more you know about a team, the easier it is to play against, right? You know their tactics, you know how their patterns, how they're gonna do, right? So, and that, like, a new Astralis roster, they're not bad players, right? And they have this upper hand edge being the underdog and not being played before, so they want that, right? Then they lose, narrow loss to Faze. They go through the Shanghai Major, lose to Heroic, and lose 2 best of ones to Spirit and MIBR. And then they lost to Spirit. I mean, like, why are we talking about if they're a top 3 team? Of course they're top 3 teams. Like, I don't see any reason why
No,
not.
but it's for the simple reason that this isn't 2024, and I think that the other lineups are better. I think Vitality is better now. Vitality's been bitching and moaning since, like, even
Yeah,
before
but
Cologne.
okay, so let's say that they should prove it then. Like
Of
they
course.
should be proving that, right? But until they did that, we're just like,
No, but I mean,
of course, Navi is,
we're saying our educated opinions on what we think is going to happen, whether they will prove it or not by the
yeah,
middle of
but I think
2025.
so. If we look down the road in 6 months,
End of first season.
it's
That's what we're
difficult.
looking.
It's really difficult to say because there's so many factors playing in.
I will say it
I
right
would
now.
say,
I don't think that G2 or Navi are going to be top 3 teams at the end of the first season.
Oh, I don't know. It depends. Like if G2 get rid of Snax, they definitely could.
Oh, I mean, that's not fair. That's not fair.
Yeah, but,
that's
like,
like
you
saying,
have-
yeah, like, I'm
have to
not.
factor everything
If
in,
they
though, you know
maintain,
what I mean?
if they maintain this lineup, is my point. Like, if they get rid of Snax, then of course they're going to be a number 1 team in the world. No, that's a different conversation. We will get to that, and why don't we get to that right now? Actually, interestingly enough, because G2 has made roster moves as well, and I know that we're really late to Rostermania and everything, but like I said, no one asked us for our opinion, so we have to give it now. G2 make roster moves. Obviously, Nico is out. Everyone knows about that. Heavygod is in. Mouz has shifted roles out towards Nico's. Heavygod is now taking anchoring position. Lots of talk about how, oh my god, Heavygod is, so much better than me at anchoring. He stays alive for 15 seconds when I would have peaked and died. Hunter is being redistributed a little bit more as well. Snax still has all the same questions about him as before. Taz is still there as a coach and everything. My first question is, should we even have, other than the fact that m0NESY is there, right? If you replace m0NESY with like a top AWPer, let's say like a Torsi, right? He's a good AWPer. He's done really well last year. But if Torsi is here in G2 instead of m0NESY, do we even say that this team should be competing for titles?
I mean, it's hard to say, right? Without a superstar, right? Like m0NESY is winning them so many games. Like even when he's not having a 2.0 rating, right? Like he still makes so many critical kills, so many entries, etc. Right? So it's really hard to quantify these teams without this superstar, right? Like same goes for Vitality with Siuhy.
Yeah.
Like same goes for Nico. Like like when you have these players who's just like a level above and beyond, they can just do stuff and they get these 10-20% extra, right? And it makes CS it's so easy to play Counter-Strike then. It's so easy to play Counter-Strike. And to be an in-game leader is even more easy. And I would say that you have to go when you have a superstar like that. You have to look at why are you not winning trophies when you have a player doing these things for you. There is so little map you have to do and look at, right? So you have to go and look at the in-game leader. When you have a Mouz, Siuhy, Simple, whoever it is, right, who's just like a donk, whoever, right? Like
Yeah.
you have to if you don't win tournaments, you have to look at the in-game leader. How come their T side win percentage is so ridiculously low compared to who they have? Like, I'm sorry to say, but that's a coach / in-game leading problem. If that is the issue.
Now, I have some inside info that I would have already released beforehand, but my podcast audio got screwed, so I don't have that podcast released. But I've got all the proofs, I've got all the receipts. I got next for a podcast. I talked to him about what sort of the inner workings of G2 were last year for the first half of the year while he was on the team. And one of the things that he said to me that was very interesting was that initially when NiKo's form dipped, it was, in his opinion, and I'm sure other people in the team can have different things to say about it, it was that Taz was given a lot of freedom to take over CT side coaching and sort of plan out their CT sides and what they'll look like. And in doing so, NiKo ended up losing out on a lot of his impact and a lot of his rating. That's why he had a bad first half of the year. If everyone remembers, 2024, NiKo suddenly became better. Apparently, that's because he basically said, hey, I need to take control of the CT sides again. Now, what I am curious about is not the T side. It's still the CT side. Because even in interviews...
Can I ask you one question just to understand correctly? So, Taz implemented a CT side system.
NiKo said that when Taz is coming in, because he wants to give more control over, and he wants to see what Taz has to offer, and because obviously Taz is new to coaching and they're trying to figure out what his strengths are. Initially, they had Taz implement the CT side system, right, and sort of try and make things around that. So on that basis, NiKo's form dipped a fair bit inally, and then it went back to NiKo being the primary person calling, and then Taz's strengths were used elsewhere instead, right? And that's where they were able to transition Taz into being an effective head coach for G2 in regards while they're figuring out his strengths, right? So my question is for the CT side. I love Mouz. I personally think Mouz is my favorite player in the world right now. I know everyone's raving about Donk, and I think it's hard to deny Donk, but I think Mouz is, without a doubt, Mouz is what I wish Device would have become, right? In terms of the mechanics and the mind and the great teammate and all of those things, I think Mouz is the truth. Is Mouz going to be that same superstar player without the CT voice that NiKo is providing? With Mouz here, with Heavygod here, these guys are new. They're effectively rookies to tier 1. Is Mouz not going to have superstar performances now?
Of course he is. He is a superstar. He is super smart. He's a good player. He's creative. Look how many things he has made that just him not out here, new Mouz, yada yada, right? All the time, right? He's grinding. He's creative. He's not afraid of trying new things. That's what makes him a superstar. And I don't believe. Now, I'm saying this, I'm taking it out my ass, right? Because I'm saying without basis, but I don't believe that NiKo was controlling and micromanaging Mouz at all.
Of course,
I don't think it's gonna have. I don't think it's gonna have any impact on Mouz at all. I think maybe even reverse, he's gonna have more impact on CT side because now NiKo's voice is gone and Melps, like you say, is more of a rookie coming in filling those shoes. Then, yeah.
Yeah, it kind of feels like he's gonna have just that little bit more freedom now on that kind of CT side. There's gonna be that little bit more space for him. Yeah, obviously, when you're losing NiKo, it's obviously going to be a big hit. And Mavs, it's going to be interesting to see, how he's going to fill in those shoes. But if you're looking at the other parts of the map, if we're talking about the CT side, you do get a much better anchor. You do get an upgrade in a different spot. And the problem was not really that fragging ability, that kind of star ability in that G2 lineup. It's never been a problem when you had NiKo, when you had Hunter, when you had Mouz. No, it's been those last two players, the IGL and the anchors, that have really been just in my opinion anyway.
Okay, I'm sorry. I have to stop you there. You can't say when they have NiKo, Hunter, and Mouz. One of those things is not like the others. Okay, I will have you know, Hunter and Mouz Hunter and NiKo are not the same player. They're not even close. Okay,
look, I honestly think you say that, but I honestly think Hunter's gonna have a really good year this year. I really do think that now that Nico's
Because
gone.
he knows he's going to be out if he doesn't.
Yeah, but I still think this is going to be, like a brand new Hunter that we see, and he's going to literally just massively improve in this team. I don't know.
actually don't think that's the
I
case.
don't
I think
think
it's
so
going to stay
either.
the same.
Really?
And yeah, because the reason is, like, my thought at least is that I think you're right about the anchor position. That's been G2's one of the biggest flaws they had before. I completely agree on that. I don't think necessarily Hunter need to be this superstar. He doesn't need to be. But that's also why he's not going to change, because now you have Melps, you have Monesi, you have a Heavygod on the extremities, right? It's not. It's going to be fine. Like, I think it's going to be fine. But I don't think Hunter's going to shine. Not at all. I think quite the contrary. Like, he needs to have these pop-off game. Like, he's going to be what Rain is to Faze. Or Chris J used to be in Mouse Sports. That's what he's going to be in this new G2 lineup here.
I just think
you're
there's going to
being
be a little bit of
optimistic.
him. I think
No,
there's
I
gonna
mean,
be
like,
that
I'm not saying
improvement,
he's going to be that. I'm saying he's going to play that role, if that makes sense.
I mean, he's going to play
Yeah.
that role, but I just don't think Hunter's going to be giving us those performances at all. And by the way, just to clarify, I don't think Nico is micromanaging Monacy either. I don't think anyone's micromanaging Monacy. But here's the fact of the matter: look at the series that they just lost to Eternal Fire. Right? Look at that nuke. Look at a map like Nuke where G2 is supposed to be incredibly good. On the CT side, they completely crumbled. Eternal Fire's T side on Nuke just managed to run over them. They were making so many mistakes on G2. There were so many clutches that they put themselves in a position to win and everything as well. I think Monacy is going to be fantastic, and maybe you're right. Maybe he is going to be better. But in these close games, the fact that there's only one voice, who has been in a position to take full control over top tier arena games, and that's Snax, and he's the voice that we are questioning the most, makes me think this G2 is not a championship contender.
Yeah, I think, look, when you're looking at that game and you're kind of saying, oh, how is that happening? You only need to look at one place, and that is literally that they were playing 4v5. Like, obviously, like, Snax, I don't know. I'm not the biggest fan of his calling, but he just can't hang, especially in those top games against solid aimers. He just cannot do anything, and he's such a liability in those positions that it almost seems like a pointless conversation to be having, that G2 are going to be the next big thing, or, well, not the next big thing, but this year is going to be their year. I think Snax needs to go, and I think they need to look towards a different IGL. Like, I mean, Siuhy getting removed from Mouz is obviously the one that everybody's talking about, and everybody's saying that could be a massive possibility, and that is probably going to be a probability in the next few weeks. And I think, honestly, if I'm G2 and I'm in control of absolutely everything, that's who I'm breaking the bank to get in. That's that person. I'm getting Siuhy. I don't care. And I don't care if it upsets the team. I don't care, if you'd promised Snax these things. You need to get him out. You need to get him out now and make that move as soon as possible.
Dude, I don't think
Yeah,
so.
I would agree on that. I would agree as well. Like now you have a possibility to get like a good in-game leader in Siuhy. Why don't you take him? Or if you really want to do something, take someone who's not really proven, but take someone else. Like you saw Kuxian suddenly and heroic and stuff like that, right? Why not take a game like that instead of taking this? I like Snax, but he's older. He doesn't bring much tactical depth as far as I can see from the outside. He doesn't seem like a leader to me. Like, what is he actually contributing with, right? Of course, this is all being said without having knowledge within the team, right? So
Yeah.
I might be completely wrong, but I would definitely get a Siuhy out, take a gamble, get my boy Velde. I don't care, right? Like, do something, right? Because there's two things I want to add here, though.
Right, if they get Valde, if you manage to scam G2 into getting Valde as your
No,
IGL,
that's not a scam. That's gonna be legendary if that happens. No, but anyways, like I wanna clarify two things here. I would say one thing. You mentioned the Eternal Fire game, right? Like the way they lost that game was, okay, they won one round by getting an entry on ramp. They got under fast, right? Then they won an inner execute where they had a low buy, and they won some scramble rounds, right? Now, what is the biggest factor here missing? That's Nico and Yard. Nico and Yard is one of the best players ever, right? To play out there. Melps, I don't know where he played before, but he's new to the role regardless, right? Because he didn't play there for a long time. Now he has to get back into it and everything, right? And I saw the way he was playing was way more passive than compared to Nico, right? So I don't think it's fair to say that oh, they lost Nuke and they speed bread and butter. Like, yeah, but they also lost one of the best players in that position, right? And you're transitioning this, and then when you look at how they won the round, it's just like, okay, that can happen, right? So I'm not too worried about that. Just give it time; it's gonna be fine. And I think if they can get a solid in-game leader, then they are a contender in my opinion. Just because of Monesi. Just
If they
because of
can.
Monesi, they're a contender.
If they get
can,
an IGL,
yes.
if they get an IGL, honestly, I can see them challenging Spirit. I can see them actually
But you
putting it
guys-
up to them in
wait,
some of
I-
the indie.
Why are you doing
I
this to
agree.
me?
I'm gonna agree honestly.
That's because you're both wrong.
No, and here's my thing. You can never write off a superstar. We saw it time
I
and again and
agree
again with
with
Simple,
you.
right?
I agree with you.
And
But
you have
saying
one
that
of these
they're
players, you
going
put them
to
in
challenge
tournaments.
saying that they're going to challenge Spirit is different to saying, hey, they can win an odd trophy. Like if they get a Siuhy, okay, who's the best option right now, I think there's no questions amongst any of us. There's the very best option right now is Siuhy. Even if you want to get like a talent, this, that, etc., you're still going to be having a IGL who doesn't win shit. He doesn't. He like Siuhy isn't the guy who's going to help you get past the very finish line in a semifinals or a playoffs where Mouz is underperforming. Right? He's not going to be the one who's going to be able to say, "Hey, this is a timeout. We're calling this," and you can still win things because you have Monacy. But Spirit is a different animal right now, and the only team that can contest Spirit and like be in a legitimate position where you can say, actually, this team could overtake them, not just win in one match, but they could overtake. That's just Vitality right now. There's no one else, and maybe you say,
Okay,
hey,
okay. So if we have like the current G2, I agree. They're not gonna be challenging Spirit, but they are gonna win an odd trophy here and there just because of Monesi, and they have Heavygod and Melps.
Bro,
If just 2 of the 3 pieces pops off,
you guys
GG,
keep
right?
hyping up Heavygod.
But he is fucking good, bro.
He's
Trust
very,
me.
very.
He's not a top 3 anchor. And he's not going to be a top 3 anchor in 2025.
He's gonna be a top 5 for sure.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree. Every time I've watched that guy, he's always impressed me. Even when he was back on Endpoint, like he was just like
he's a very
I could-
impressive player, and he's going to make the leap to being a top 10 anchor. And you know what? No, he's going to make the leap to being at least a top 5 to 7 anchor for sure. But everyone keeps talking as if this guy's going to be Yimfat. He's not going to be Yimfat. He's not going to be a bit. He's not going to be. Maybe honestly, he might not even be a Messi.
I'm gonna challenge you. He's gonna be a top 3 anchor by the end of the year.
We're gonna keep this in mind, and I cannot wait for you to be wrong. Because
Well,
Regin's like, oh my god,
you're
I coached
also
this guy.
taking an easy standpoint, right? You have a Robs, you have a Yimfat, you have who else is there?
Yimfat bit Messi.
Bit, yeah.
I say even Messi is probably gonna be better than him.
Hold my fucking bike. You're bullshitting me now. Like, come on.
It's
I've
not the
never
raw
heard that one
mechanical
before.
ability that I'm talking about. It doesn't have to be. It's just that he has no one who's going to give him the leadership needed to become a better player over 2025. Who's helping him? It's not going to be Monacy. Monacy can't help him. It's not going to be Mouz. Mouz admits he doesn't know how to anchor for shit. Snax has never been an anchor in his life. Snax, even as an IGL on Gamer Legion, refused to be an anchor. Who's helping him learn? Who's helping him grow Taz?
Well, hopefully his coach can do that, right?
You'd hope. I mean,
when I had him in Endpoint, I mean, it's not to wipe my own hair, right? But how to say, wipe my own ass.
I'll wipe your ass for you. Don't worry, I got you.
But my point is that he told me that he learned a lot, right? Yeah. And I didn't focus that much on that anchoring side and stuff like that. And I also think like, if you're a Heavygod, I love Nikki. He's one of the best guys. He listens.
Who's Nikki?
He talks.
I don't know who Nikki is.
That's Heavygod. Sorry.
Okay, cool.
And for me, it's like he will do it even himself because he is so willing to learn that he will just figure it out, and he's not afraid of trying new things out. And I think when you see how you work with Monesi, who's one of the most, if not the most creative player in the world, you're gonna get inspired. You're gonna understand it. You're gonna be understanding more and more, even though it's not your position, right? And he's gonna say, bring something to practice, like, oh, guys, I'm gonna try this today. Explain it, and you'd be like, oh, okay, oh, that's actually smart. Maybe I'll try that in some regard in my side or whatever, right? Like, if you're open-minded, I do believe it. Like, you can do that, right? And with the like I've known Tess for many years. Like I don't know him when how he works and stuff, but he's been in the game forever. And if he can't teach Heavygod, he should not be a coach. Like that's just all I'm saying. And I do believe that he can teach Heavygod some things, right? Because oftentimes being a coach is just having this third eye view, right? Like not being on the server asking you questions. Like even you could do that. Like okay, that came out wrong. I mean, like, I think a lot of people could
have a
do that, but
future?
you just need to ask the right questions, right? Like, you don't need to be a god within CS to be a good coach necessarily. Like, you just need to be good with people and then make them like figure out what makes them tick, right?
You're talking about being a good coach. I'm talking about getting a player who's never played Tier 1 Counter-Strike to being a top 3 anchor in the world.
Yeah, but that's gonna be fine. Like this, like I said, like he is a creative guy. When you have working with the players you're working with, you are gonna elevate. Like it's just gonna happen.
I think as well, like it's a really good point that when you go to a team like G2 and you're kind of looking up and you're going, okay, well, I'm actually teammates now with Manesi. I'm teammates with Hunter. I'm maybe not so much Snax, but you're there, and like especially when you're working with that player. So obviously him coming in and having an open mind is great, but when you've got like a new guy joining a team and you're trying to be a top team in the world, when your teammates are saying, okay, this guy is here and he's willing to learn, he's coming into practice, he's very open-minded, he's asking a lot of questions, he's trying to improve, I think that's going to inspire the others as well. That is just going to make him a better player, and it's going to be just like this chain reaction. And that's why I think honestly they really could challenge now, with the asterisks, if they get rid of
Right.
Snax.
I am gonna cut down on you guys' anime bullshit before we move on, for this simple reason that you're making it sound like, oh my god, this is such a great environment to be in. You're going to G2, one of the most pressure organizations in the world. You're going to a G2 where everyone's talking about how, oh my god, Siuhy's out there. Why aren't we kicking Snax for Siuhy? That's the easiest scapegoat you're going to have all the time. This is going to be a split locker room in a month or two if you keep underperforming. And by underperforming, I do mean losing out matches to your Eternal Fires of the world, who might be better teams than you right now, by the way. Eternal Fire is really good, but name value wise, when a fan sees you lose to Eternal Fire and you are getting all of that pressure and everything, I don't think G2 is going to be able to do a good enough job isolating them away. Then on top of that, from what I understand, these are not player decisions to be skipping some of these events. Liquid's players have intimated, according to, I think Shox and Kassad mentioned this on the desk for Katowice. So Liquid's players intimated there might have been an organizational decision as well. You're not this is the worst era of organization-player relationship that we are going to be entering into for Counter-Strike. When you are a young player and you're being told, yeah, you're not going to play that $1.25 million tournament, Heavygod doesn't give a fuck about going home, most likely. He's hungry. He wants to play. These players want to play. They don't want to skip out events like PGL, Cluj Napoca. They don't care about that burnout because they know, why don't we just skip an EPL? All of these things are going to be going on in the back lines. This is not a conducive environment. G2 is not an environment where you go in and it's kumbaya and you're all going to be feeling like, oh my god, this is going to be great, we're going to do great. No, there is a ridiculous amount of pressure on you, and maybe he becomes a diamond. Maybe he does. I'm not going to say that that's not a possibility. I'm not going to say he doesn't have the talent to be a top 3 anchor. I think by next year he probably should be. And if he isn't, then that's a failure on his part, because that's a talent he has. But in your rookie year, guys,
Okay, so to add a few things on that one, right? Like I think you're right, but at the same time, I also feel like, isn't that also just part of being a professional? Like you're working for this is your employer, right? Like so, and you're an employee, you do your job. You don't have to worry about what tournament you're going to. That shouldn't be on your mind. Your mind should be on the game right in front of you in practice, and then play the game, right? You shouldn't be thinking about, oh, here's this, that, and there, right?
okay, but
like
I open
let
a
other
Twitch stream
people worry about that.
of 15,000 people cheering, and they're saying someone else's name who you think you're better than. Of course you're going to worry about it. This isn't a normal job. It's a passion industry.
No,
You can't say that.
but in anyways, right? Like if people are making decisions, let's say they have a sports psychologist, like I'm just hypothetically, right, saying we should skip this event because of burnout, potential burnout. Now you as a general manager, whoever makes the decision, who are you going to listen to? Some young guys who is 18, 19, 20 years old who doesn't have any life experience, or are you going to listen to the sports psychologist who you're actually paying money, who has experience in this, and try and listen to figure out
No,
when
I
is the
agree
correct
with
time
you.
to peak, right?
I agree with you, but that doesn't mean that there isn't going to be an inherent conflict within the team for the players. This is not going to be the best environment. You're not coming to G2 to learn, is my point. You're coming to G2 to succeed immediately, and that's the
I mean,
expectation.
I don't think that's correct though, because if that's the case, you would never have picked up a Monenis to begin with, right? Like you wouldn't pay 600k or how much they paid for an unproven player who's never played on tier 1 before. So I would disargue. Like I don't think you're correct about that.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree as well, and I also think there is like a little bit of an asterisk like beside that G2 team though, because like you're coming in, and if I'm Heavygod and I'm going into this G2 team, and you're saying about like the pressure and they're demanding the instant results and all that, but if I'm going into that G2 team and I go in, I perform in my roles to the best of my ability, I do a decent enough job, I make myself, kind of like proud in that position. I know I'm not the first on the chopping block, so there is probably going to be like that in your mind as well. That even if this G2 team doesn't work out as is, that you're not the first one out the door. So I think honestly, it's an investment for the future, and yeah, I think this is where Heavygod actually could do a lot of learning and develop into that. As you're saying, I'm gonna be a little bit more generous. Probably top 5 anchor. I still think he could be a top 5 anchor this year.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think that's certainly possible. But yeah, okay. All right. What Zerpher is saying is that Heavygod already has a fruit basket sent out to Hunter like 6 months down the line when he's the one on the chopping block instead of Snax for no reason. Fair enough. Okay, got it. Let's talk a little bit about Katowice as well. Actually, do you guys want to talk about Siuhy? Because obviously we've alluded to it a couple of times. Siuhy being removed from Mouz, very last minute. I think this is gross incompetence and mismanagement on the organization's part, because if you're going to end up losing a player 2-3 weeks after the entire massive shuffle of Counter-Strike, you are missing out on a lot of money potentially. I mean, if Siuhy had been in the running, I'm sure Falcons would have been knocking on your door to try and buy him. I'm sure G2 would have been at least much more interested at that point than now, where you have all the weird VRS bullshit that you have to take into consideration and everything. What are your thoughts on Siuhy being out of Mouz over here?
So just to add one thing, like Falcons would never ever get Siuhy, and that's the reason for that is they needed 3 players to keep the ranking. Otherwise,
but before, with the lineup that they were planning on building, they were going the NIP way, right? They were saying, well, we're just going to get players so good that we don't care if we have it. It was going to be Nico, Modazi, Shimfat, Magisk, and one more. You wouldn't have had the core anyway.
I don't think that's the maybe, but like I think they want some results
don't
now.
Smile
so
like that if you're not gonna leak something, okay?
No, I'm just saying I think that's yeah. So that will never happen. But I do timing is bad, of course. But I also think if you're a mouse bot, you have a potential to pick up a player like Spinx, you do it. Like you do it instantly, right? In my opinion, because they needed something for winning, right? They were like good, but they didn't win, right? Now, is that on Siuhy? Is that on Torsi? Is that on the coach? What? I don't know, right? We don't know what's going behind the scenes, but something must have gone wrong. In my opinion, I don't know exactly why they decided to cut Siuhy, but something must have gone wrong, in my opinion, when they're trying to acquire Spinx. There's got something wrong there where Siuhy wasn't agreeing on this or something. Siuhy is also a player as an in-game leader who plays a lot of the star roles, like Connect the Mirage stuff like that, right? Like he's really in the mix and everything. And you're not gonna get a star player or like a really high player if Siuhy have to give up those positions, right? So I don't know. Of course, it's me guessing, but I think there's a conflict there with the roles and stuff like that since they decided to bench him.
I just think it's
And
wild.
Wait, can you clarify,
yeah,
Zerpher, before? Do you think that Mouz, in a situation where you have to choose between Spinx and keeping Siuhy, should have still gone with Spinx?
I don't think so.
I'm not saying what they should do because I don't know like the
What do
behind the
you
scenes
think
stuff,
they should
right?
do?
But I think that's what they did. Now, in my opinion, I think I would have gone with Spinx as well.
Okay.
Yeah,
Jump on,
I
Zerpher.
think.
And,
I,
and, and my reason for this is when I look at Mouse, I see a very well drilled team. But tell me something. This is something to tactical mastermind where you're just like, this is so crazy by Siuhy. When is the last time you thought that?
To be fair, you're asking people who don't think tactical mastermind most of the time anyway. When we're watching broadcast, we think, oh my god, he hit
you know
a
what
shot.
I mean? Yeah, yeah. So for me, I think like what Siuhy has been good at is like these mid-round calls and like also micromanaging Torsi a lot, at least from what I heard from other players. So I think that could be a potential downside because now we have Brollan as an IGL, and that I don't like. Like, take anyone else from that team, not Brollan. Like, that's how I feel. I
Zerpher,
might
jump
be
in.
again completely wrong.
I,
But he just seems like very quiet and stuff, so I don't know exactly how that's gonna work.
yeah, I've
Um,
no fucking idea.
but I would say this, right? Like, I think Cyclone has done an amazing job as a coach beforehand with the Mouz and XT project. Coming over to the new Mouz, taking up new players, etc. I think he can do it again. So if I'm Mouz again and I have a chance to get Spinx, and I say to Cyclone, fix this in-game leading stuff with Brollan, I'm gonna trust it because I think their system is solid.
I think their system is solid, but I think a lot of their system did kind of rely on Siuhy as well with his mid rounding because his mid rounding is very strong, as you're saying. Like, and I just don't think Brollan is like he can definitely learn, but if we're talking
Why do you
about
think he can learn? And I hate this phrase. Why do you think Brollan can learn?
no, I think he can learn, but it will take time, and I think he can learn because of who he's got around him. Because Cyclone is a very, very good coach, and I think he can definitely help him kind of grow.
Cyclone
into that
has
role.
not made any IGLs.
But
Siuhy is not Cyclone's project. Listen, Cyclone can have a lot of strengths in scouting, this and that, and everything. Dexter was. I mean, I personally question Dexter as an IGL in general, right? But Dexter wasn't great underneath Cyclone. Cyclone wasn't able to help out other IGLs.
I mean, to be fair, Dexter wasn't great under Mythar anyway, right?
I mean, listen, I agree, but what I just generally mean is that Cyclone, who is Cyclone? Who has he made into an IGL before? Siuhy came pre-packaged from Gamer Legion. Siuhy is an Ash product, not a Cyclone product, right?
So no, I don't disregard that, but I'm saying, like, what I'm saying is, I think Cyclone must have done something correct.
No, I get what you're saying, but I mean, I just want Zerpher to tell me why he thinks Brollan has the potential of being an IGL.
I think he definitely could be an IGL. Like, it's a difficult question because I agree with you. Like, Cyclone hasn't made him. Siuhy is an Ash project, you know, but I just think like Cyclone is doing the right things with Mouz. Like, that's why they were competitive. And I think if you put Brollan in an IGL position in a system that Mouz have, Cyclone can give him something. I don't know what it is. Like, I don't know what he's gonna actually be able to do, but I think he can slowly mold Brollan into an IGL that can do something for Mouz. But the whole start of this conversation was based on, you know, Mouz weren't getting results. And what did they do to get results? You drop your IGL and you pick up Spinx. Like, that just doesn't make any sense at all to me. That's like you're taking 2 steps back to go 3 steps forward. You know, it doesn't make just any logistical sense in my head why you would remove him unless something went on in the team. Unless there was a disagreement in the team. Let's not forget, these guys have been playing with each other forever. Like, from way back on the Mouz NXT side. Sometimes when you've played with teammates for a very, very long time, you start getting on each other's nerves. You know, things begin to boil over a little bit more. And yeah, they're professionals, but at the end of the day, when you're in, you know, such close confinement with people for these ridiculous amounts of time that they are away, sometimes it does just boil over a little bit. And maybe it just came to a boiling point, and maybe they were just like, right, well, we need to make a change. Brollan was like, well, I'm interested in exploring the IGL role as they were discussing their options, and Spinx came available. They were like, yeah, let's take him. But if we're talking about Mouz having that instant success, I just don't see it. I really don't.
I'm also
I think it's going to be hard as well, like to find that instant success. But and I do agree with you. I there must have been something internally going wrong, because I thought from the outside, Mouse looked like this happy-go-lucky team kind of in a
Yeah.
way, where like everything is just clicking really good. They have these pretty good performances. They're just about to find it. I think something broke at some point. We don't know, of course. We have to guess, but I think something happened. And when you then do get a possibility to get Spinx as as a general manager, you're picking up Spinx.
Yeah.
You have to.
the one thing where I'm more concerned actually is I think Mouz was sacked this season. Like, to be honest, I think Mouz as an organization has said, screw it, we're not doing anything this season. Let's just make the major. Let's just do what we can. And this is a building season for them. I am just curious about Mouz's attractiveness as a destination into the second part of 2025. If you don't have a great IGL, Spinx is a good piece to have around you, but Spinx also has a bad rep. Publicly at the very least, maybe not privately within players, but he has a bad rep because of, all the drama and whatnot. And maybe it wasn't his fault, but there's always going to be questions about, hey, kind of just an environment situation. You don't have a world-class IGL now, which Siuhy, you might say he's not a tactical mastermind. I still think he was a world-class IGL because he takes any player that he's working with and brings out the absolute best in them. And we saw that with Imma. We saw Imma have that drop-off when she wasn't underneath Siuhy. We saw him having to take all of that time to come up again. I think Siuhy is a snappy type figure in that regards.
Hey, can I say one thing that's that, because I think that's more a product of Ash than Siuhy. I don't believe a guy who was at the time 20 years old is gonna have that medical whatever sauce or whatever,
he
right?
did bring
And you see Ash do it again and again and again. Like I don't know if he brought Torshi. Torshi was
he definitely
good.
brought Torshi up.
Yeah, but Torshi was always good, right? What he lacked was this kick in the ass micromanaging, right? Now, when you do get micromanaged, it's much easier to play CS than it require, right? So yeah, he did that. He did that correctly, but that doesn't mean anyone else cannot do that. Like, this is my point where you can, in my opinion, anyone can do that if they're doing it, right? That's the point. Are you doing it or not? Because if he was under Kerrigan is not gonna micromanage you like that. Or maybe he is.
I think
Right? I don't
Kerrigan
know.
would, based on what he did with
Yeah,
Acor
probably. Yeah, he would
Acor
probably.
back
That was
in
a bad
Mouz.
example.
Yeah, but I understand what you're saying. I disagree with you. I think that these things are hard to find in IGLs to be able to do effectively while you're still making mid-round calls to actually play another player's spots effectively and things like that. That's really hard. I think you're underplaying how good Siuhy is at that stuff. But my point still is he's still an attractive player to come in for. If you're not going to have Jimfat, which by all accounts, from what everyone's heard, Jimfat's going to be out after this season, unless there's some sort of miraculous conversation between him and Mouz, and that's definitely not going to happen if you're having a shit season right now. By the way, Jimmy is not staying if Mouz perform badly. I'm just wondering, is Spinx enough of a pull for Mousesports as an organization to build this roster up again? Because Brollan as an IGL is not going to be an attractive thing. He might not even be a permanent thing. Spinx is a great player, fine, but then who else are you selling? Zershin? Zershin might even be doing even more poorly, considering that, for this first 6 months of the year, we're going to see him be in this really awkward IGLing situation where someone's learning how to IGL. He obviously has to have some role clashes maybe with Spinx and whatnot as well. Not in terms of direct roles, but even in terms of communication roles and how much he can talk in the game and things like that, etc. This is just making Mouz a significantly less attractive destination for talent for me.
Yeah, well, I know, I agree 100%. I think this is like nobody's gonna look at Mouz now and think, I want to be there. And like removing Siuhy, like it still doesn't make sense to me. But I think if you're talking about, all right, even without the Siuhy thing, like all the talk with this Mouz team over the last couple of months was, is Jimmy staying? Is Jimmy going? Before even Siuhy was announced that he was benched. So already it was kind of like, okay, well, Arma is going to be as good without Jimmy. They're missing a big player who's going to come in and do that role. Now you're talking about you're going to lose both of them. I don't even know who you get. The only players that like I'm thinking of in my head right now is that you are going to pick up whoever is the odd man out of that heroic lineup. I think maybe might be a shout if you're talking about like who's going to come in if Jinfat does go, you could probably get, you know, one of those players. I don't know what the whole Nilo situation is going on or what's going to happen there, but they've got too many cooks, so they're gonna have to get rid of one of them eventually, and I think maybe that's going to be a possibility. But do I think it's going to be attractive for the bigger names to go there? No, not at all.
I figured out what they want to do, Mouz. So for this year, I think you're right. They're not going to do anything. Then for next year, they're gonna pick up Nerds and Flames, and then they're gonna go full Israeli.
Oh my god! And then they're gonna take my Asian spot again. No.
No, I don't know. I think it depends, right? Has Mouz ever been a place where you're like, oh, they're gonna pick up a simple or Monesia or whatever? They've never been there, right? So what talent have they been picking up? They can still pick the same talent up. Like it's not gonna hurt them, right? And for me, if I'm a top player, like let's say I'm a Nico or whatever, right? I'm not gonna be like, oh, Siuhy, oh yeah, for sure, I want Siuhy right now. I don't think that at all.
But okay, they may have picked up talent, but it's a lot harder to pick up talent now because of all the academy teams, this and that. You're not going to be able to find a Kyosuke or someone like that without a buyout. Like the way they found a Rops, the way they found, you know, the way they were able to get Oscar on and, you know, have all of these crazy performances, which was what led them to being. Mouz has been a top 5 to 8 team for the past 5 years now. That's crazy considering where they used to be. And it just feels like, given the current environment of Counter-Strike buyouts and things like that, you are entering into a slide where I think they might become a significantly smaller player in Counter-Strike overall, even if it's for, you know, up-and-coming talent, even if it's for someone like a Heavygod. I think you're going to be a less attractive destination because of these moves that are happening.
Yeah, I think they need to go back and, like, if they need to really improve their academy again, because Mouz NXT has always been like the hot spot for, you know, these kind of young up and coming talents. That's where most of this lineup came from in the Mouz lineup. You even look at like the Mouz NXT lineup that they had before the current one. You've got Crizzen that went to OG. You've got PR now that has gone to Gamer Legion. You need to hope that your scouting again can be as good that you can get players in that are gonna, in a couple of years, do the business. Like, because I don't see Mouz going and spending big money on players. I really don't. But right now, if I'm looking at, you know, like kind of that funnel from the academy team in, I'm thinking, oh no, they are in trouble, because there isn't somebody that they can just take out of that academy team that they have now and go, all right, well that's perfect. He's, you know, a good up and comer. He can go maybe in here and do a job in time for us. I just don't think that's going to happen. So I think time is slowly running out here for Mouz.
And when I say like talent, by the way, I don't mean Nico. I mean maybe a JKS 2 years ago, right before he went to Liquid, right? Like that's the kind of player that I'm thinking of where, you know, there are players that are discarded who are really quite good. You look towards what Blame F was right after Astralis. He was around in the market. That's the kind of player which I expect would probably hesitate to go into a Mouz Sports if they don't have these other pieces to be sort of working around. Players who maybe will be in the bench for 6 months because they're not that hot prospects, but they know they're not going to be on the bench for a year because they should be in a top 10 to top 15 team. I think that's where the conversation gets more interesting. But let's also move the conversation.
I think just to end on it, I think like it's really difficult to say. Like I think Brollan, like if you just put it all when it comes down to it, I think Brollan as an IGL is not gonna work. I think they're gonna need to get a new IGL. That's my opinion of it.
Yeah.
I also think Torsi is not gonna work. So that's how I feel like it. And they're gonna make another substitution. Or trying to figure.
There are not enough AWPers in the world right now to be able to get a good one.
There's not enough IGLs that are
true.
Good enough to go there. Like it's just a severe lack of everything at the top level.
Why are players so shit, Zerpher?
I don't know. That's a story for.
Come on, Zerpher. Why don't you tell us all about how everyone in Counter-Strike just sucks and they don't know how to play on a top level?
Look, if you want me to dive into this, I'll turn it into an 8-hour podcast. Right? No problem. I'd assume you guys have got other things to do.
I don't.
I'm actually very curious right now. Can you give a little sneak peek now?
Oh no! Hey, I was hoping it wouldn't go too far. Like I don't know. It's just a bit weird though. Like because you're looking and it's like you're always crying out for an IGL. You're always crying out for a top level AWPer unless you're in the CIS region for some reason where they seem to have a spawner of just like these up and coming talents that are, you know, putting up 1.3 ratings in tier 3. I have no idea like where those guys are coming from, but I don't know. Like, is it because I'm still even trying to think how to word this. Like, is it just a lack of leaders
I'll
in the young players coming up? I'm not sure.
I'll jump in about the Opera thing because in my opinion, even the CIS Opera is it's a complicated topic, because for me a lot of the issue for the CIS scene and the Operas where everyone's like, oh my god, Zorta is amazing and Deco's great, and I say this as someone who says Zorta is amazing and Deco was great, right? Like, I just think that these are players who, because of really bad contract situations, they get locked out of tier 1, and then you just see them being crazy good in tier 2 for so long that you don't understand they're not going to do the same thing when they get elevated up to a top 10 team. Like, the competition you're facing is just so different that you look like shit. That's really all.
Yeah.
You think back to like a Hades, for example. Hades went back and started dominating tier 2 again when he got kicked out of Ents as well, right? So like, I just think that there's such a big level jump up that for Alpers especially, there are really good Alpers. It's just they don't look good when they're going up against the Shiro, Zaiwo, Monesi anymore, and it's very hard to. That's just the unfortunate reality of the situation, and it's getting harder in CS2, and I think that will get better. I think the Alpers in general will adjust into CS2, and, you know, maybe fulfilling more of a role in some ways, maybe being more crazy skilled in other ways, but it just, there just have never been that many Alpers, in my opinion, who are that good. You know, compared to the top 3 to 5, it's just the biggest gap that exists in Counter-Strike.
Yeah, I think it's very difficult as well when you're kind of comparing them to, like, you know, the top Operas that we do have, because the Operas are just so good, but you do wonder, like, why is there, you know, kind of such a gap between,
yeah, I
you
mean,
know,
why is
the
Holzer still in
levels?
complexity, right? Like, I wonder that all the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, but like, no, like as well, like with the point you're saying, like people, like when they come up and they actually like get tested against these Operas, like you seen it with Elian, like back in 2021. Elian came up and everybody was ranting and raving saying that Elian was going to be the next best thing, and he got absolutely farmed, and he got sent back into tier 3, and he never recovered. And like you're looking at it and going, all right, well, you know, you've got these players that are kind of coming up now. Maybe they're going to do something. Maybe they're going to break onto the scene and really be exciting. Or are they going to be, you know, maybe they'll get into the wrong situation, the wrong team. Maybe they'll be like a head trick situation almost. And, you know, they'll go in the NIP, they'll have a really bad time. Then they'll have to go back and work their way up. I don't know. I think it's just going to be a little bit longer until we see, you know, probably a big star in the op role anyway for me.
Plus, I honestly think people are just so bad at judging Operas, especially Operas, actually. I think people are so bad at being able to tell if you're good or not. Because, like, I look over towards, you know, for example, a player like an Alistair and whatnot, who everyone's like, oh my god, Regali is replacing him. And I know I am very controversial in saying that I don't think that that's necessarily an upgrade overall. But a lot of the times you don't know how bad the setup for Operas and whatnot can be. So you think that an Opera who looks like he's performing poorly in tier 1 tournament is just bad, and they're going to be bad. Some are going to be like terrible, but some are also just like used really poorly. So you never really know. But enough about that.
But can I just say one thing? Like, I think
Please do.
also it's like we're comparing apples and oranges, in my opinion, because you have a Shiro. I wouldn't even put Shiro in that category, but let's say Monesi and Saiwu, right? Those are the one people are comparing it to. It's like comparing any footballer to Ronaldo and Messi.
Yeah.
Like you can't do that, right? But
Yeah.
you're still gonna have a striker in these positions, right? So, or a midfielder, whatever they play. I'm not
I
following
don't
soccer.
know.
But
Don't
my
win,
point
kind
being
of,
is
bro.
that you can still have really good uppers, and they can be farming tier 2 because you don't get punished as well as you do in tier 1. But at the same time, they also need teammates that can shoot back, right? Because you could be really good AWPer, but if your teammate just getting absolutely destroyed, suddenly you look bad as in the first tier 1 event. But that's nothing to do with your skill. It's like, well, what you can do when my teammate just dies,
It's
right?
well with the money, right? You know, because like if
Also
you're
that, yeah, right?
yeah, because if you're getting farmed, right, and if you're an opera being brought in and you know you lose a half 9-3, you might have only got the opera on the CT side twice if you were even lucky, or if you were able to get a save maybe or something like that. You know, like it's very unforgiving, I think, as well, like at the highest level for an opera, because like if it doesn't work out kind of the first few times and you're actually just not winning rounds, you're just not going to see that gun.
Yeah, and like I honestly think like the biggest problem is that when you see this up and coming, you mentioned Alien. I can't remember what team he was on when he brought up.
Entropic.
Entropic.
No, before that, right?
No, it was
No,
Entropic.
Alien was on Entropic when he was like.
Okay,
It was
so
Alien,
Entropic.
Crad, Forrester.
Yeah,
and
that's true.
Nickelback.
That's true. Forrester, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
but look at the teammates he has. Are you gonna tell me that those teammates are gonna be like the same caliber as Astralis, NaVi, whatever? They're not.
No, of course not.
Right?
But,
and then it's harder when your team just fucking dies like flies to actually perform, because you're not simple, you're not Siuhy, you're not Monesi, you're Ilian. And Ilian is a good AWPer, was a good AWPer, maybe just under, right? But he's not up here, and that's the difference. And that's what everyone's comparing it to, and that's the wrong perception, because when a young guy comes up, but he still plays with the same team, same teammates who is not better, and then get absolutely destroyed by a Frozen and Robs or whatever, right? What are you gonna do as an AWPer? You can't do anything. So I think it's really, there is a lot of up and coming AWPers, but I think it's an unfair comparison we are making a lot of times.
Of course. Now I want to talk about some of the future. I want to talk about Katowice. I want to talk a little bit about the general Q1, the quarter one of Counter-Strike, about what this is going to look like. And this is where, guys, we get into the slightly more fun part of the show for me, because I don't like real analysis and I like bullshit hot takes. And because I am jealous of the Hot Take Point Made show, because they look like they're having so much fun, I wanted to get some hot takes from you guys as well about this one. So let's start off things with Q. And you know what? If you don't have hot takes, don't worry. I wrote mine down, so you can just react to mine, and I'm happy with that too, because I just need to be able to talk to in life because I'm lonely. The cure to male loneliness is podcasting. Everyone knows this. For IEM Katowice, do you guys have anything interesting that, for the main event, not for the play-ins and anything? Do you have anything for the main event that, you're thinking about going forward? And in case everyone doesn't remember, the invited teams are Spirit, G2, NaVi, Vitality, Faze, Mouz, the Mongols, and Falcons to the top 8. I'll start, and you guys can, sort of think about it. I think Falcons is going to be a better team than G2 at Katowice, both in terms of placement, where they might not be better, but I think they're probably going to be equal, where I think both of them are going to be around that top 8, maybe top 4 mark. But overall, the issue is, of course, they have Dexter, but I just think this is going to be a better looking team than G2 going into Katowice.
Hard disagree.
I'm on the fence.
Yeah, okay. I've got believers. Excellent. And I will build into this. Now, because I just think that from what I saw in Blast Bounty, and I know that's not much, but this is hot takes, guys. Come on, let me bullshit. Let me have some fun. I just think G2 are going to crumble in pressure moments. And I think Katowice comes in with a lot more pressure, with a lot more issues. And for me personally, I just don't think that Malbs is always going to be able to maintain the form that NiKo needed to provide this team to actually push forward. And on the other hand, for Falcons, there is just so little pressure for this team, maybe for some of the individuals in terms of like Dexter in particular, but for everyone else, it's like, hey, NiKo gets to go back to the old NiKo Sports days where he knows that I have to basically do everything if we're going to do anything. The bread is very clearly buttered in his favor, so all of your setups are going to be built around him. I think Kixon also has some good early round calls very often that he can work with, and my god, man, Tessis is, he just made me a believer after that bounty performance. I just think that going into Katowice, sure, you have Modesty for G2, but I have no faith in any of these other players to be able to actually show up in pressure moments, especially given, like I said, I think there is a lot of pressure onto them to perform in Katowice, considering they're not going to be at Cluj Napoca.
Yeah, when I said I was on the fence, like, it's more so because I do like this Falcons lineup. Like, I do like this Falcons lineup. I'm going to still stick with the point that I think G2 could contend, but it's entirely dependent on if Snax is able to hold his own. It's entirely dependent on that. I think the rest of them will be fine. I think you may be over-exaggerating a little bit there. I don't think they're going to struggle that much.
Malbs had a lower rating than Snax on Nuke, where they lost against Eternal Fire, by the way. I didn't contest you then, but I will let you know Snax was not the issue there. And Rejin's right. This is a very difficult role for him in a map that they were obviously relying a lot on. But that's just my point. I just think that this is a team that doesn't know its strengths right now, other than the fact that m0NESY is, the god of AWPers right now in Counter-Strike. I don't think this is a team that is going to recognize its strengths either by the time Katowice comes around.
Yeah, I mean, like, you countered it with one map, and I can just counter you with basically the rest of them that they played.
He's going to be shit,
event.
don't get me wrong.
Like, yeah, look, I don't get me wrong. I do like this Falcons lineup. I do wonder, though, I think there is going to be a little bit of a clash. I think Nico and Dexter, for some reason, I just don't think they're going to get on. I just don't think they're going to get on. So, especially if the results don't go like well straight away. But I do like this team. I do really like this Falcons lineup. I think they could definitely be better than G2. It's not completely out of the realms of possibility, but I just think m0NESY could just show up. m0NESY could just be there. He could just dominate, and they could just get into a Katowice final.
Uh-huh.
Come on, Ragin.
Yeah, I'm flabbergasted. No, I think I think you guys are like you mentioned before. There's gonna be no pressure on Falcons. That's absolute bullshit. There's gonna be so much pressure on Falcons. The reason for this is simple. You bought in 3 players to keep the VRS points, right? Now, is those the 3 players Sonic wants? I don't think so. There's 100% no chance, right? So you have 5 players. Minus Nico, maybe Magisk as well, who's like safe. They're safe. The 3 players coming in, they have to prove themselves. There is gonna be a lot of fucking pressure on them to perform and to show that they made the right decision. Because if not, you're out. And that's not even being unfair. It's how it's gonna go, right? Let's say in 3 months' time, they have been doing all right, but they're lacking some AWPing. Dexter, you're out instantly. If they can get m0NESY or whatever, they're instantly out. Right? You know what I mean? So that's my point. Let's say their calling is going bad. Siuhy you in, kicks me out. Boom, like that. Like that's how it is. And so there's gonna be so much pressure on them coming in. I think they're gonna flunk instantly. I don't think they're even gonna win a match there.
You don't think they're gonna win a match in Katowice?
Nope. No. They might win a map, but I don't think they're gonna win a match.
That's all.
I think they're gonna flop out.
You
said you want a hot take.
I want it. I agree.
That is my perception of it, because I have so much trust in Nico. I love Tessus as well, by the way. Magisk as well. I just don't think it's gonna be right now. They are eventually gonna make it work, but this is too early, and there's gonna be a lot of pressure.
Yeah, I agree. I completely forgot about that. Like that point that you made. Yeah, I think 100% there is going to be pressure on this team. And not only that, like in terms of like when you were saying it's like, and the point is simple. I thought you were going to bring up simple and his loan. I was like, he's not on the team anymore. But still, like it is kind of a relevant thing as well, because they did spend a lot of money to get simple in for that month. I know it's Saudi, and you can say, oh, they've all the money in the world, this, that, and the other. But still, it's gonna cost them. It's gonna hurt the Bucks. Any player of that caliber that you're bringing in for that short amount of time and not getting the result that you wanted, it's gonna sting a little bit. I'm just wondering. So, is it 6 months that they need to keep this core before they can make changes?
They have to play 10 matches, as I believe.
10 matches. Sorry,
okay.
yes, not maps. Yeah.
So,
as I believe, yeah.
Yeah.
No, 10 maps even. I think.
I think it's
matches.
matches.
It's matches.
Yeah. So
it's because that's the weird part. Just
is that
because
why everyone's playing Pro League?
Yeah,
maybe.
Honestly, it could just be that everybody's trying to play as many matches as possible, and this is going to be my next point. I can see if Falcons don't do well in Katowice, they are going to take every single invite they can, play the 10 matches, and say goodbye to somebody, whether it be Dexter, whether it be Kixon and get an IGL in. I don't know.
The CCT suddenly announces, you know how we just got Anders? We've got Falcons too now for the next 3 tournaments. But they said they're going to drop out after 10 matches. I don't know why.
Yeah.
That's actually a funny thing. Like best of 3 and best of 1s are the same. Like they both count as one match, which actually is a bit fun.
You just found like a round robin BO1 tournament to go.
Let's fucking go.
It's like scheduling. Who wants scheduling? Give us 5 matches a day, guys. Come on.
Let's get it over with. Yeah. So that's gonna be my hot take.
I still just
At least
think
that.
I just think that Falcons for me are going to come in with a better map pool. That's the other thing as well. And you don't have footage on this team. I know that
Exactly.
and that just puts them in a position where I think they could end up looking better at Katowice than G2 is going to. Because no matter what G2 does, G2 is still going to be working off the same structure. They don't have these crazy innovators who are going to be changing things a lot. They're going to have a much bigger target on their back than Falcons is. Maybe the only reason why people care about Falcons as players is because of Nico. Right? So I just think that this Falcons team has an opportunity to look at better at Katowice than anyone else. Now, here's my follow-up take. Because we've had a call that Falcons are gonna not win a match and this and that and everything. NaVi are not gonna make it past top 12 for Katowice as well, in my opinion.
Well, they're gonna be top 4. That's gonna be my.
Yeah. I think they're top 4.
I mean, that's
if you wanna.
You don't have to. No, you don't have to have a hot take.
No. I'm gonna add one.
You don't
Faze
have to.
Faze and Vitality both flop.
Define flop.
Ooh.
Like, give me a position. No, give me a
Both
position.
don't get top. I would say for Vitality, top 4. They don't get into top 4.
That's not a flop, though. If you go top 6, that's not a flop. Like that's not disappointing. That's not a flop. A flop is what I said. That's not a hot take, man. Oh, they don't make top 4.
Well, like you're saying that.
I'm saying Vitality. I'm saying NaVi don't make top 12.
Yeah, but you're saying though that Vitality are the only team right now that you can see challenge in Spirit. So therefore,
by the end of the season,
they should be no, but okay, by the end of the season, yeah. Okay, right. Okay, sorry, I misheard that then. I misheard that. I just don't think Vitality and FaZe do well. I think they win maximum 2 matches.
Okay, but can you react to what I said first before you get your own shit in? Come on, Zerpher. Is this Whitehead left you?
What did you say?
I said that I think NaVi lose top 12. They don't make it past top 12.
I think you're crazy.
And I'll tell you why. I'll tell you this very straightforward. Because the Mongols are back. You know, Mongols are going to be in this tournament now suddenly. You've got Faze, who I personally think are going to be doing fairly well at the tournament. I think even the teams that are going to enter in from the play-ins is likely going to be like Eternal Fire and the like as well. I think Eternal Fire right now is a better team than NaVi is. I look over towards teams like Pain. Pain almost upset NaVi. Pain could do it again. There's no doubt about that one. There are so many teams that I look at, and if I put them head to head with NaVi, I just think, yeah, well, NaVi probably wins 60% of the time. 40% of the time is a lot, right? And it doesn't take that much to be eliminated from a Katowice. So you basically just need to lose 2 best-of-3s. I think they're going to win one match in this entire tournament, basically, is what I'm saying for NaVi.
I mean, for me, if I just can add a little bit, like I think like you're talking about percentages 60-40 and stuff like that. Well, I think if you look at a lot of the teams besides Spirits, I think almost every match like a 50-50 or 60-40. Like I don't. Yeah, like besides Spirit, I think the rest is like really fucking even.
Man.
I believe so. Like, honestly, I do.
Because G2 and Vitality have the cheat code of ZywOo and Monazi, who are going to just absolutely crush lower tier opposition. Falcons, in my opinion, has that in terms of Nico as well. For me, FaZe has that in Elige. I think FaZe even to some extent has that in Brokey, because I think Brokey might not necessarily be like the best AWPer, but he just brings in this really weird style that lower tier teams aren't good at dealing with. That's all. So when I'm...
Oh, but I'm also talking about like the top, like a FaZe versus Vitality is going to be like a 50-50, 60-40, right? I mean, like those teams. I'm not talking about...
Yeah, but you know, if NaVi loses a match, like let's look at what this bracket is probably going to look like, right? Like, you know, NaVi is going to be playing up against probably Spirit, because they're in the same bracket side as Spirit. So it's going to be an upper bracket semifinals versus Spirit. You lose out over there, most likely, right? I think all of us are in general agreement that NaVi probably does lose to Spirit because of track record and all of that stuff as well. And then I just think no matter who that second team is going to be, you know, it could be. Well, actually, it couldn't be a Mongols, but it could be any of these, you know, teams coming up for like Eternal Fire, Pain, etc. We don't know what it looks like at all. But I just think that's going to be a 50-50 match. And I think at best, I think Navi loses.
No,
those
but I think
situations.
now you're also saying Pain and Eternal Fire, which I classify as the same category. I actually think right now, okay,
No,
this is
no.
my hot take then.
But what I'm
Because
saying
this,
is, what I'm saying is that I'm saying this will happen, and Navi lose after winning just one match.
I like that. Yeah, okay. Well, there's a potential for that for sure. Like my hot take, just because they actually go hand in hand with what you just said there, is that I believe you're gonna see Eternal Fire in top 3, or let's say top 4, because like that's easier. Like that's they have semifinal, right? So in a top 4, I think their team looks so freakingly good. Like they are playing not a traditional style of CS, and they have just so good players, like crazy good players. They seem like to have found themselves. I think Pain top 8 easy. I think also is possible. And this is where, into what you said before, like with the lower tier teams, I don't see, besides Spirit, and I go down, I don't think Eternal Fire is worse than a Faze, or worse than a Vitality, or whatever. I think it's a 50-50 match. You say I can say the same with Pain. I don't think they're like, because they are so good right now. And this is where I think people are misconceiving it. Like, oh, it's Navi, it's Vitality. They're talking about the names, right? Well, in reality, the gap is not there. Like, there is literally no gap between them. They are two equally good teams playing. They're just not called G2. They're called Eternal Fire, or they're called Pain.
Zerpher, isn't it fun when you just get these guarantees that even though, as talent Ragin, just to sort of open the curtain for you, as talent sometimes get worried that, hey, these former coaches and this and that, what if they come onto the broadcast and they really just they're just better at our jobs than us? Isn't it fun when they prove that they're not? Because Ragin just came out and said it's a hot take to have Eternal Fire come top 4 after they just were in the finals of the last LAN we had. I was like, oh no, wow.
Yeah.
Well, okay, I don't know. Like, okay, so look at the lineups. Would you put Eternal Fire in top 4?
Yeah.
Actually, yeah, probably.
You really?
Like,
Okay, well then it's not a hot take.
Actually, you know
Take
what?
another one.
I think they're definitely top 6, and winning a series to get to top 4 wouldn't be surprising. Put it that way.
It depends. It depends, right? Because we're speculating right now because we've no idea like where they're gonna go in terms of the play-ins. We don't know if they're gonna go into Group A. We don't know if they're gonna go into Group B.
True.
Like there is a massive possibility that Eternal Fire could go in, and I don't know like what way the season's gonna work, but let's just say worst case scenario, they go in, they play Spirit first game, they lose to Spirit, then they play, they play the loser.
Spirit could lose that. Spirit
whoever.
could actually lose that match. I mean, Spirit has lost so many random matches in the group stages for like Katowice and Colognes.
They definitely could, but there is a possibility that like they could just get into that bracket where they run into Navi and Spirit in their first 2 games. Like
sucks that they'll have to eliminate Navi in the first game, man.
Yeah, I think I don't know. I think you're hating on Navi way too much, man. I don't think they're that bad. I don't think they're that bad.
I agree, they're not that bad. I agree, they're not that
bad.
So actually, I can see a point. I actually can see a point now, T. Like where there is a world where Navi is not making it through at all. Like because like they just, let's say they lose fast to some team, they go down, they play, but even again, I could say that about.
No, the difference is Navi has Spirit in their bracket.
Yeah, exactly.
Like so you effectively have one life. Everyone else is playing double elimination. You're playing single elimination because you've already lost one of those. You know it.
Yeah. You're right. You're right about that. Yeah.
Yes, that's sort of more my thing overall. Let's finish things up with Zerpher. Zerpher, you said that Vitality and Faze flop out. What is flop out? Because see, I've been very specific. I said Navi do not win more than one match. What is flopping out for you for Vitality and Faze?
Depends. Like it depends who they get in their first game. But what I seen from Vitality and what I seen from Faze, I just wasn't impressed at all. I really think Faze are going to struggle more so than Vitality. That would be one I'd be leaning into maybe a little bit more. If they get a tough game in their first game, I can see them going down into that lower bracket, and I can see them going out relatively early. I don't know. I don't know if I really want to quantify it and say like if they don't get top 12. I think they probably will get top 12. I think they probably will get top 8. Maybe Faze are kind of teetering for me on that kind of like top 8, top 12 kind of spot. Vitality, I just don't see a way where we're going to see them in the top 4.
I will remind you that both of these teams are in the same group bracket as well. Yeah. So I will be generous and say, it's almost impossible for one of them to not make playoffs, right? So like one of them probably will make playoffs, but you're saying Faze doesn't make playoffs. Playoffs is top 6 as a reminder. Faze doesn't make playoffs, and Vitality don't make top 4, right? Is that your call?
Yeah, and like if we, like I do agree with Ragin as well that paying top 8 seems entirely possible, maybe even further. I can
He's
see
just like he
he's
is so.
seething. He's seething. Like,
He's like, what is wrong with you guys? You
like,
retarded piece of
I
shit.
agree. I agree. I'm glad you said it and not me, dude. Why do people keep forgetting Blast Bounty? Okay, Blast. I hope Blast hires me, and this is why I've waited till an hour and a half to say this. Blast Bounty was not a good tournament. It's an online tournament into an 8-team single elimination. Faze lost in an online event. Whoa. Faze lose random Blast tournaments that are online because they don't care. This is Katowice. You're going to see Rain perform. This is the one tournament outside of the major that he comes in and he's like, yeah, actually, I am pretty good. Yeah, I'm going to be good at this. Broky's going to be doing well because this is still a team with 4 men with great chemistry, great mid-round calls, which you don't need a lot of time to develop and set up. And then Elige is then there, who's just, he was a top 10 player in the world. I don't care what HLTV says. He was a top 10 player in the world. And you're saying that they don't make playoffs.
yeah.
The greatest IGL Counter-Strike has ever had, who just got out of the finals of a major, put together with the greatest North American player who Counter-Strike has ever had, who was a top 10 player last year, and one of the greatest veteran players who still continues to perform in Rain. You've got Frozen, who's going to be dog shit in the finals, but he's going to be great up till the finals. And then Brokey, who's just the weirdest, funkiest mercenary AWPer all around. Like, and you're telling me that you think that they don't have a chance of making playoffs. Basically, unless they get lucky, they're not going to make playoffs. You're saying that they need a 4-leaf clover, you Irish son of a bitch. You're saying they need a 4-leaf clover to get to the playoffs?
Yeah, I really do, man. I just don't see it. This Faze team, man. I just look, Faze notoriously known for their slow starts as well. Like if they have a slow start in this,
Blast Bounty was a slow start.
Yeah, but that, like they played.
Blast Bounty was effectively for Katowice. I think 2 matches. That's all.
2 matches. Yeah, with a new lineup. Yeah, online. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I know. And it's Faze are a different team when it comes to LAN. I agree. But Faze, are they known for having slow starts? If they have a slow start in this event, you know, they haven't played that much. They have a new player. Yes, I agree with all the points. You know, Carrigan obviously done a lot in his career, one of the greatest IGLs. You know, they've got really good pieces in that Faze team.
IGLs.
But
clearly a Glaive fanboy sitting here.
But if it doesn't click, what happens if it doesn't click? We see it so many times that, you know, you bring in a new player that is meant to elevate. As you said, you know, Rops didn't play that well last year. You bring in Elige. Elige is an upgrade in your eyes. What happens if that doesn't click?
Then Carrigan fixes it.
Yeah,
that's what he does.
What is it? A pit stop? Like,
yeah, basically.
How quick is he gonna get it done? Like, if they,
bro,
if they
he
lose...
made he got Croman to a finals.
I mean, so this is what I agree with UT is that I think Kerrigan just have some magic and Elise is so fucking good stuff at that. What I'm worried about is actually the positioning of this whole thing, because when I think picking up Elise, great idea. But what you're also doing is that you have to move Elise. Either he has to take Rob's position or Frozen is. Right?
Yeah.
So who's gonna go where? And I think that's gonna hurt them way more if they move Frozen to these more anchoring
used
positions.
To play those positions back in Mouz.
Yeah, he used to. Yeah, and that. Oh wait, let me just rephrase that, because he used to, and we didn't win shit when he used to play there. When we moved him, that's when he started kicking in. We won.
Yeah, I forgot you coached him.
Just saying, right? so I'm just saying, if it was me and if I was Faze, I would have gotten at least 100%. But what I would have done is I would have kept the Robs and removed the Rain. Now, if I couldn't keep Robs for some reason, which I think he would if Elise came, I don't know. Let's say you couldn't keep Robs, then you find a replacement for that position. I don't think it's been a good role-wise roster move they did. I like the Elise pickup. I don't like that it's gonna be a replacement for Ruffs because that roles is not fitting. It's two completely different players you have, and what you lose is not gonna be made up by Frozen going into his positions or Rain or whatever, right? Or Elise for that matter.
I like that as well because that's that's the point that I was trying to make, but you were able to go like a lot more in depth with it. You know what I mean? Like if it doesn't click was basically if it doesn't work out because you're changing a lot, man. Like I don't know, I just it
I
doesn't
mean,
do it
that's
for
the
me.
thing, right? Like, it's not only one guy being moved. Like, if it was just a one guy roll, no problem. The
Yeah.
problem is there's a lot of pieces moving here. But however, again, it is Kerrigan. And he just seems to make things work. Like, he pulls a rabbit out of his ass constantly. We were like, oh, he's out, he's finished. But no, they're at the finals again. What the fuck happened, right? And, if you honestly, would you have thought at the major Faze would be in the final? No one would have thought that.
The only person who said that was Kassad on a Hot Take show, where he was like, either they don't make the major or they make the major, it'll be in the finals.
Yeah, well, that's also a widespread shotgun shooting here. Yeah, but anyways.
Well, you guys have anything else you want to talk about before we send it off?
I mean, there is the play-in right now, no? Happening.
But do we care about that?
I mean, there is a team that is interesting to talk about.
Okay, fine. Why is Regali the worst thing to have happened to FlyQuest?
I mean, to be honest, I didn't actually follow FlyQuest at all. I didn't see how he played or anything, so I don't know.
I'm joking. Ragin, you wanted to talk about this?
No, I want to highlight a little bit, like, just talk about it because I think it's relevant. Like, I saw the match Furia against Imperial. Female team.
Let me give some context to all the viewers as well for this one, right? Because obviously that's important. The way the Valve World Rankings work, if you guys have been under a rock, invites are sent out on the basis of the Valve Global Ranking. The Valve Global Ranking is determined by things like prize pool, whether a tournament is a LAN or not, etc., etc. So especially in the last year, where all of the invites were, up to the TOs, and there were a lot of gender-exclusive tournaments, which will still exist and will still have Valve World Rankings, but we don't know how those might end up looking like into 2025 and whether there will be any alterations. The top 32 teams in the world for the Valve World Ranking included multiple female teams. Of these multiple female teams, the only one that was actually able to play in a tournament because they did not have a male team that was ranked higher than them was Imperial Female. Furia Female also qualified for something similar. I think NaVi Javelins were also in a similar position, but because Furia and NaVi both have top male teams, or just top general open teams, in the top 32, they couldn't play. Imperial Female has thus been able to play both in the Blast Bounty, where they played against Natas Vincer, and they lost out that match in a 2-0, where I think one of the scores, and Zerpher, if you could please open this up and confirm. I think one of the scores were 13-8 and the other was like 13-4 or something on those lines. But again, please do confirm. And then right now they just played in Katowice versus Furia, where it was an overtime loss to Furia on Mirage, and then they were 13-1 on Dust too. So a lot of conversation then happened around these matches, and more so back in the NaVi match than Furia, I would add. But especially back then, there was a lot of conversation giving credit to women's Counter-Strike teams in terms of how far they've come to be able to have these sorts of performances. And this was the general discussion around these teams overall, online, on Twitter, on, from players who might have even played them, and from general personalities around.
Yeah, it was a 13-8, 13-7 on
okay,
Mirage in that NaVi game.
Mm-hmm. Right, Rachel,
so
jump in.
Yeah, I think, like, what I don't like, I have to phrase this correctly. So I think Imperial Female are there fair and square because that's the rules of Valve ranking. The Valve ranking took in to the account of the women's team, women's league last year. That's why they're here. Now I do believe that's going to be changed, so you don't get ranked points for playing the female-only qualification because that would be discriminatory according to VRS rule set. So therefore, they will not get ranking points. Now they're here and they're showing some Counter-Strike that is actually looking quite well.
That is currently not true. Currently, you can be discriminatory in terms of gender. You can make women's only Counter-Strike tournament at the time being.
Not according to the rules. I just talked
In-
with
in-
the.
If that
I
is a
can tell you the
change, then
rules right
that's
here.
in like last month or so. But before that, Valve was very specific that you can have gender-based tournaments.
It
That would
says
still count.
non-discriminatory treatment of teams. Athletes needs to be non-discriminatory and identical for all teams and athletes. It says there in the VRS.
But there is a separate stanza that used to say, and I haven't checked this. Sorry if I'm wrong. That used to say that
then
you
they might
can
be
discriminate
updated.
on geography and gender with the two.
No,
teams.
that's not part of it anymore.
Okay.
At least what I can see. Then it should be updated again. I don't know. Anyways, let's just keep it at that. It doesn't really matter. Now they're here. They've been playing against NaVi. They lost 2-0. They played against Furia. They lost 2-0. And now people are saying like, oh, they're a top 30 team. They're playing some really solid CS, yada, yada, yada. Now, I'm not saying they're playing bad CS. I would love for women to be part of the top scene. I think it's really healthy for everyone. But I think also they should go there the same way as everyone else. The cameras are messed up here.
Don't worry, but I did that on purpose because I had to give you guys
so what I'm arguing here is that I don't think they're a top 30 team. Like they're playing okay CS, but so is so many other teams down to top 50, 80, whatever, right? I think they're doing it all right, and the time will tell if I have to eat my words and just say, oh, whoa, they were actually top 25 team, right? I just think it's way too early to say anything. They didn't win a single match. They got, you could say they played close against NaVi. I didn't see that as being close at all. Then you can see, oh, they played overtime yesterday against Furia. Yeah, but they were behind 9-3. Is there some, you loosen the pedal maybe or something? I don't know. Maybe there's a lot of pressure, yada, yada. There's so many factors coming in. It is MR12. You could potentially lose a match. Heck, I even beat G2 on LAN. I should never have won that, right? Like I had a 007 rating on Vertigo and got absolutely stomped. And then next map, I had a little higher rating, but actually won one map against G2. That doesn't make me a top 30 player, or it doesn't make whatever team I was like, you know what I mean, right? Like you need some consistency before we make these claims. And the women's, this is what I don't like. People are talking like we have been discriminating against women Counter-Strike and they're not welcome. That's not true. Like they have been welcome in any part of tournament circuit. You know what I mean? The fact of the matter is that they just didn't qualify. Now, if the Imperial female is that good to be able to compete, bring them in. Like the more the merrier. I love it. But let's all be on the same page. Let's come from the same system. Let's come from the same way, right? Because they haven't qualified through any open tournaments. They lose to X, Y, and Z. And this is not discriminatory against women or anyone else. This is about integrity of the fucking tournament, right? I don't want anyone there on a wild card.
Let me just jump in on this very quickly as well because
I'm ranting. Let's go.
I want to clarify some things over here as well because I think it's important that you also get the perspective from someone who I'm from the Asian region. Obviously, I'm a big proponent. I'm a really big. I speak a lot about how the Asian region has been discriminated against and this and that and everything because I think that's true, and I don't think that that's anyone's fault. I don't think anyone's been like, hey, fuck you, Asia. I think it's just a part of the system that we are in. We also got qualification spots to top tier events, and we were shit. Like Asian teams were really bad for a very long time before they start to become better and things like it, right? There are structural reasons why that's the case, and there are probably some sort of reasons over there in women's Counter-Strike too. That's not to say women's Counter-Strike is necessarily going to have like a top 5 team or something. But the notion that you can't have, one or two women's Counter-Strike teams in the top 30 to 50, I disagree with that. Are they there currently?
I didn't say that
well. And
they couldn't go.
And this is what I mean. Ragin thinks as well that there could be women's teams probably within a top echelon of Counter-Strike where they can be at LANs. And, there are definitely, even if there aren't going to be like a team of 5 women, there are definitely women in Counter-Strike who are good enough to play on a top 32 team if they are given the time, space, whatever that they need. And even if they aren't there right now, they will be there in a couple of years. There's just no doubt about it. And those women are probably going to have a hard time as well for a lot of reasons. And that's not because anyone is saying that, we are at fault. It's just that we are a burgeoning sport. We are a young sport, which has a lot to figure out. And in the process of figuring these things out, while these rules have also been established, which have made it so that these invites are coming in, that maybe that's for the best. Maybe it is, but then it needs to be acknowledged as that, in the same way where Asian invites were acknowledged that, hey, we don't have to say the Asian team is doing fantastically well as well. A lot of the times it was a joke. Now there's a conversation to be had there, right?
Yeah, but can I just argue that 1 second? Because I don't think that's fair. You're talking about a geographical situation where, because of ping time and everything, that's simply not possible. You can't do it because you can't play with 300 ping against each other, right? But
Right.
you were not like you. The problem I have with this is that you're discriminatory about genders. One gender gets it easier way than the other way, right? That
Of
didn't happen
course.
in Asia, right? That was both. That was all thing, right? And you can't compare it.
I fully look. I think that there is a comparison to be made because the issues are not the same, but I'm pretty sure that there probably are certain issues in terms of, like, player base, etc., all of those things where, it's just general issues that, for example, North America also has now for Counter-Strike, right? Where they just don't have the player base to be able to get these generational talents forward, and that is why North American teams will struggle a little bit more. So then that's why, for North America, we do still see some quote unquote, and I don't like this term, but some quote unquote affirmative action being done for NA all the time. And I agree that you probably shouldn't get a slot into a Katowice directly, but the one good thing about the way that the rankings sort of work right now is that because there will be mandatory invites to a lot of these tournaments, like the CCTs, like these online relog events that are going to be held as well, this is going to be a problem that is quickly fixed, because I don't think you can say no to all of these CCTs, all of these relogs, and then say yes only to the LANs before. Then you're just a piece of shit team, right? Like, if you're a women's team that's saying no to other opportunities, I'm not saying that this is currently happening, but when this starts to happen,
no one is.
Yeah, no one is. But when this starts to happen, that you are getting invited to more tier 2 structures as well, which I think is fair. I think, like, considering that a CCT might end up having, like, the top 55 teams in the world at times, a rank 60 team in the world at times, there probably are women's teams that are that good right now. That might be even maybe a little bit better than that, or can be, but this is going to be a problem that fixes itself, in my opinion. Now, the issue is going to be if women's teams start being like, well, we're just going to say no to everything except for tier 1, which isn't happening right now and probably will not happen. That is when this becomes more of an issue. Otherwise, I do think this is a teething issue. That said, I agree with Ragin. I don't like the fact that we are all belittling these teams and not treating them as proper players, as proper competitors. I think it is disrespectful to go out and say, hey, oh my God, these guys are doing so great, even in positions where they might not be. There are things to celebrate about them. The fact that they took it to an overtime against Furia is pretty awesome. Like, if I saw an Asian team do that, that is awesome. Whatever the reason might be, whether, maybe they're not taking it seriously, that's true to any tier 2 team. If a Metasport had showed up a year ago and then they managed to do something, I would celebrate them and say, hey, this is pretty cool. I'm going to keep my eyes out on this team. But I wouldn't go out and say, oh my God, this team definitely deserves to be at a Katowice because they almost had an upset or something like that. That's something to figure out. That's something for them to prove. And I hope that we can get away from this situation where everyone's saying, hey, celebrate these people for something they haven't done yet, because I respect them as competitors. I think they're amazing competitors. I think there are things that they have done. And I think the fact that, especially for, these small group of women who has been winning all of these women's tournaments and everything, I know for a fact that these girls are probably very serious about making it to tier 1 Counter-Strike. They really do want to do so. They're trying their hardest. They're trying their asses off. And that's awesome. But I will then treat them as a serious competitor. And I hope that we can move away from this, hey, it's a novelty situation. Hey, let's just say they're good because there's been so much terrible stuff said about them, because there's a lot of terrible shit said to them because they're women. There's a lot of people who go the other way as well. They just aren't community members. And I hope that community members can recognize them, respect them as competitors, and not blow things out of proportion in their successes, because that is how, hopefully we can have legitimate interest and conversation driven around women's Counter-Strike as well. Zerpher, do you want
Well, I think just to add to that, like, no one here, at least of us three, I don't want to speak about everyone, right? But at least for me, I can say that I welcome women. I welcome them all. Like, I love women, right? Don't get me wrong. Like, and if they can play CS, fucking hell, let's go, right? But I'm sorry to say, people are. My hot take here, or like what I have.
Not a hot take. This is not a hot take part.
Yeah, I know. Like, but let's say my issue with this is that people are saying, "Oh, they're this amazing. They're a top 30 team, yada yada." I mean, they're losing in ESEA main. They are in a main division of ESEA. A top 30 team is in Challenger. that's 2 leagues over. I'm sorry to say, but they're not there yet. Can they play CS? Can they do an upset here and there? Sure, maybe. But anyone can do that, right? And that's my issue. Not my issue I had. Like, it's just that I hate this over glorifying things. They're welcome. They are here fair and square because of the Valve rank and the way the rules are. Sure, let's see what they can do. They did play, and they actually looked quite good on Mirage yesterday against Fury. I'm not gonna discredit it. Anna looked fucking amazing. If I didn't had like the bar who's playing, I'd be like, was that Monesi? That was absolutely insane performance by her, right? So I completely agree with you. Let's just be on the same track, everyone, and just be like, I hate discriminatories. We should all be having the same equal opportunities, right?
Yeah.
Like the opportunities should be the same, and they have been the same, especially in Europe. No one has ever said no to a team just because they're women. And if you're good enough, people also want to practice you. I remember I saw Sas, you probably saw that as well. Oh, please practice us, top teams, yada yada. Well, normally when we have been practicing, we did that in TSM. We also tried practice against them. We absolutely crushed them. Like we got zero opponent, like no training out of it, because no matter what we did, it would work. And it's just like, I'm sorry to say, and this is not me hating on anyone. It's just the facts, right? And I think sometimes we're afraid of talking about what the actual facts are,
I am
and we
afraid.
try to glorify. Yeah.
You're making me afraid right now.
A lot of people are. A lot of people are, and it's nothing to do with them. Like,
I'm just afraid of you, Ragin.
well, don't be, right? Like, you know, I hope it makes sense what I'm trying to say. Like, I welcome as many people as want, across races, genders, animals. I don't give a shit, right? Can you play CS? Can you give me? Can you let me be entertained? Come join. Let's fucking go. And it has been entertaining to watch them play, right?
Yes. That is also the thing where, you know, Zerpher, before you run into lava, I'll just add this, you know, some pros that have been there. It's been entertaining, and some of the things that they have done in terms of the Counter-Strike thing that, you know, Michael pointed this out to me yesterday. These are teams that play clearly like they're underdogs. They do come out with weird set strats. They do come out and try and exploit the fact that, you know, there isn't footage on them. They do come out and exploit the fact that people haven't been practicing them, so they can try and get things to work out, right? This is very much what like a dream situation is, where their matches are going to be entertaining because of things around that. So if nothing else, they are providing the bare minimum a competitor has to be, which is entertainment, which is interest, which is, you know, a team that maybe I give a shit about instead of like a random rank 40 team. My camera just shut down, guys. Don't worry, I'm going to fix that in a second. But, you know, I'm just saying that this is not a wasted slot necessarily, in my opinion. It's just that I really do wish that we would treat it like serious competitors rather than anything else. And where Rejin is saying, hey, it should be equal opportunities. Absolutely, I think there's a conversation to have around that. But even if you want to open up slots to things like this, I would just like the conversation to be honest. That's all.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like, I actually don't mind that at all, because, like you said, it has been entertaining to watch. And I think, like yesterday, was it yesterday they played? Yeah, it was. They played against Fury, right? There was like 200K people watching a play-in match, right? It's like, that's not normal, right? So it's really healthy for the situation and everything, right? And what I that's a good job, bro. Like, what I really, what I just hate is this. Or they could be playing top 30, yada yada. Bull fucking shit. Call me an idiot. I don't care. That's simply not true. Because, like, and then they're talking about, oh, but if only the good teams would practice us. Well, what you're advocating for there, says, is privilege. You want some privilege that all other teams doesn't get. Like, I've been coaching this Georgian team for free, for fun, in January. They're not even ranked on HLTV. Like, when I search practice for them and stuff like that, we are not playing against the best team either. Now, should they also just be playing against the best team? Funny enough, we were actually playing against Imperial, which I believe was a draw in the practice, which doesn't matter in the end, right? But my fact being is that I also tried to grind many years ago, and you had to just go and find a position of the same place, of your same level, and grind your way up, right? And eventually, if you're good enough, the other teams are gonna practice you. But we don't want to waste our time, and we are like, I can say for the teams I've been on, we have not been discriminated when I've searched practice and I've seen like, oh, Nip is searching here. the female team, of course. So that would be the good team, right? Just
Yeah,
kidding.
of course.
And we tried play them where we just be like, okay, this is a waste of our time, right? Then you wait a bit before you practice them again, then you give them another shot, right? So at least that's for me. I can only say for ourselves, right? And that's just been the facts. And I hate that we can't say the facts. And I think that's really what's annoying me a lot, because there's so many great teams down the ladder. Like when you go from top 30 and down, there's so many interesting teams, so many interesting players, and I think they just get overshadowed by something that is yeah. I don't know. I've been ranting a lot here.
Zerpher, do you wanna? You don't have to say anything about the Zerpher, by the way.
If you want to stay safe, you just shut up.
No, look, it's because it's a difficult topic to talk about, because obviously if you're a man talking about it and you have the wrong opinion on it, you're labeled as a sexist, and then
But
if
isn't that why we brought you in, to have a
Yeah,
resident
yeah,
misogynist? Like I wanted.
But you know what I mean, like it's just if you have like a conflicting opinion about it, it's tough, and you don't want to say the wrong thing about you. Like you're making the joke, like it is almost like a minefield. You don't want to upset too many people when you're talking about it. But the facts are the facts. Do I think it's good for CS? Absolutely, absolutely. Like the viewership alone is fucking incredible.
Yeah.
Like it is incredible, the amount of people that have been watching it, and it's because it's exciting. I'm going to make a comparison here. I don't know if either of you watched darts, but I think it was a couple of years ago, about 5 years ago, during the World Championships, a woman named Fallon Sherrick was playing darts, and she ended up beating I can't remember who she was playing against, but she basically became the first female player to to ever beat a male at the World Championship of darts. And it was a massive achievement for the sport, which it then came on in leaps and bounds for the women's scene after that, in terms of I believe this year there was 3 women at the World Championship. I don't know if any of them won, but I think there was 3 women actually playing at the World Championship. So when we have female teams coming into tier 1 events and you see them going as close as that, I think it's absolutely fantastic, because it's going to inspire a lot of women to begin to play. They are going to hopefully get into the game, see how fun it is, try and grind, try and improve, try and get better. And we are going to see slowly but surely an increase in women playing the game, but also in terms of the talent that is going to be in those impact leagues as well. It's only going to get better over time.
But by the way, I completely agree with you. I don't think anyone disagrees with what you just said there. But what I would like then, let's make a proper system for that, man. Let's make one of the slots for women team. Let's do that.
Yeah, like
right,
a
like,
wildcard event.
but let's make it official. Let's say this is the rules, right? What I hate about this is that it's actually also sucky for the female teams, because those are the ones who are gonna get pointed at, right? Oh, but you also have your own league, blah 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 blah, right? And it's like, yeah, well, this is good for the sport. Let's just acknowledge these things. Let's say this is good for sports. It's good for women's, like to come in the Counter-Strike. I love it. I think it's great. The more the merrier. The more people we are, the bigger industry we can grow, right? So there is no downside to this.
Look, to be fair, to be fair about the slot thing, right? I do think that with the way the system works, you probably are not going to have more than one women's team at any top 32 event, and the only events you will be at are top 32 events, right? Unless you fight, because fighting in the top 16 and top 24 is still hard. Like, we haven't had, even on the Valve rankings, any women's team get there, because there just aren't enough tournaments, and I think that might be a good thing in that regards. Like, that otherwise, if this is what we continue to get, which is like, hey, one team, the best women's team, the very best women's team, comes in, and that way the other good thing is that probably means that the very best women's team has a reason to change their lineup, right? They have a reason to continue to try and improve and iterate on their lineup, because otherwise we've seen so many domestic scenes even where like the top domestic team is just always going to be the best, even if there might be like some players in the cup who are better and whatnot. I just personally think that I don't have quite as and the entire scrims topic and everything, by the way, I think that's been discussed to death. I think everyone is pretty much in agreement on that stuff, which is like, hey, teams will scrim who they think will help them improve. No one really think that there's any sort of barrier. that just felt more like a cry for help. Like, hey, we really appreciate it, and maybe it was phrased poorly when Zaz did it or whatever it was. But again, the important thing is, if this is going to be a fixture in World Counter-Strike, which I personally like this. I would really like this to continue to be the case, because I just think it's fun. And as much as there might be stories of a player in like the 32nd best team who we're not telling, I don't give a like, there's so many stories to tell. If that player is good enough, he's going to end up on the 31 team. If you're good enough, you're going to probably make it there. One slot isn't making that much of a difference. Now, of course, there's probably some sort of like principle.
Can I add one thing to that then? Because that's what I think is relevant. Like, I'm also coming from a competitive standpoint, right? I've been coaching teams who's been like around that top 30 area, right?
Yeah.
It's super, super difficult to stay around, like to be like, are you top 30, 31, 32, 33 is so close, right?
Yeah.
And one match, it used to be based on the HLTV ranking, now it's based on VRS, so it might be a bit different there, I'm not sure. But like, you maybe got like 1 point HLTV or something, and that was like literally from top 30 to 40 was the difference was sometimes 1 to 2 points, right? So understand, like, you can work the whole year. I'm not talking from a competitive side, right? Now I'm top 32. Suddenly I just get knocked out by a team who didn't play the same tournaments as me, who didn't play, like, who played a segregated league alone, where they farmed these points. I would be so freakishly disappointed and mad at the system and everyone, right? And I think that's not good from a competitive standpoint, right?
Yeah.
That's my whole point.
Yeah, I think though as well, like, Tim made a really good point there with, when he was talking about, I think that's going to work itself out over time. I think that's
probably, yeah.
I think we won't even be having this conversation in a couple of months, because they'll get invited. They'll get invited to the tier 1 events, which, in terms of that prac situation, that the scrims situation, I honestly think now that people are seeing how competitive they can actually be, there will be more scrims going their way from top level teams. But again, it does have to be a situation where it does have to actually be worth their while, because where are you going to go into a scrim against a team that you're going to...
Zerpher, just to clarify, I will say the reason why I think it's going to work itself out is also why I think what Rejin's point is going to be addressed. It's that they're going to be playing more tournaments. You are just invited to all these CCTs and everything, right? So that's also where, if they think that the reason why scrims and everything is an issue is because people don't recognize your skill, which is, to be honest, I'm sure for some of these like shit teams, like in terms of like the rank 40s and whatnot, where there's just some random team, there might be some cases like that, right? But if you're playing against them in tournaments and everything, then hopefully, if they are doing all right, if they continue to be like, hey, we're winning some maps here and there, we might take a series. Maybe we make it to like we make it like the playoffs of a CCT event, for example, right? It's situations like that which will be fantastic. And at the end of the day, we probably won't have more than one team at any of these events anyway. So yeah.
I mean, I welcome it. I welcome it so much, but I want to like play the CCTs, play the EPLs, whatever they call everything, right? But play them, right? Don't just go into this, oh, we have this woman tournament, we play that, and now we're here. Right? Like, that is the part I really fucking hate. And what is even more worrying is that, let's say Imperial Female are actually doing this, then they start losing, right? Let's say they start losing, and whatever reason, right? Now suddenly they lose the Impact League for whatever reason. NaVi Javelins win or whatever, right? Suddenly NaVi is invited because they have way more points because they didn't play any other tournaments. Like, there is something wrong in the system when this can happen. Like, I hope it makes sense what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Because suddenly you're punishing Imperial Female for actually playing tournaments, but they losing, so they lost their VRS points because the points they got, they lost, blah, blah. Now they lost one tournament, and now they're fucked. And now you're actually discouraging Imperial Female for playing other tournaments, because if they just stay above water, basically, and just win the Impact League, they're there next time, right?
Yeah.
But if they start playing CCT and everything, they lose VRS points. Let's say they lose a one match against NaVi Javelins, boop, all the invites are gone.
That's a very good point, to be fair. Like, that, there is an incentive structure to mean that the team naturally probably shouldn't necessarily always play, and that's something that should definitely be examined and fixed out. So yeah, I agree. I think there's definitely some kinks that need to be ironed out, and I hope that we can also assess these teams as honest competitors, because that's what they are. That's what they deserve to be seen as. And we will say that, probably some of these places, especially individual performances, have impressed people to the point where you can say, yeah, this player probably, if this is how they always perform, they probably can be in a top 32 team.
Sure.
Are they currently a top 32 team right now? Probably not. Do we care about that when it comes to invitations to tournaments? Honestly, probably not either. As long as we're being honest about it and saying, hey, the impact leagues are going to give you, like, let's say, for example, 500 extra VRS points just annually. That's just how it works. And you will get into the 32 teams because of that. Whatever. I'm fine with that. It's okay. As long as you're not sneaking into a major, which is going to be prevented because those are not global invites. Those are regional invites, and regionally making it in is different in that regards, in my opinion, because most of these teams that are doing well are from Europe. If you can't luck into a major and stake sticker revenue away from anyone else, if it's just going to be like one slot at Katowice and Cologne's, I think this is honestly best case scenario.
I mean, I think as long as people are treated equally, I welcome anyone. And the last thing I'm going to say is, I have loved watching Imperial Female. I think Anna is super fucking good. I don't know her personally, but I've known Seth for many, many years, since 1.6. She's always been really good at the game. I'm not disregarding any of their skill. They are welcome to be here, but let's hype it down a notch and be real and have the facts straight and figure out how to deal with these problems there is with the VRS and with or the tournaments where you are segregating people because of genders. If those, I just saw what you linked me before, by the way, T, and it looks like you are actually allowed to do that, where you can hold a women's only league and actually get points. That's an issue. That's a really big issue, because the problem is, okay, not to go down with it, but there is also prize pool money and stuff like that. Let's say a Saudi team just makes a all-women team, and here's $10 million for a prize pool. Suddenly they get a buckload of VRS points, and now they're in the major and they didn't lose anything. Yada yada. You know my point, right? I hope it makes sense. Like, there is so many loopholes to be sorted out before I'm really happy with it. And until then, let's fucking go Imperial Female. I love to watch it. That's all I can say.
Yeah, I think Kochka, it's such a fair point. Like, I think I don't know how they would do it though, in terms of actually like sorting out that kind of loophole. Like, because I think obviously, like, it should still maybe count for a little bit, but I don't know like how many points they should actually get.
There should, like, realistically, there should probably just be penalization for any sort of geographical limitation or any sort of gender limitation, right? Like, if you're going to make it, like if I say I'm doing, like, if I'm saying, hey, I'm running a Pakistan only tournament, it is definitely going to get less VRS points, right? Like, or at least it should. Then even if it's $100,000 tournament, it's only Pakistani teams because I get the Pakistani government to pay for it or some bullshit like that, right? There should probably be some sort of investigation into it to see how we can fine tune it in a way where Impact League still gets you points. Impact tournaments still do give you points, and they still do give, like, let's say one team a leapfrog forward, and I'm fine with that. Give your best a leapfrog. That's awesome. That is amazing. I love that. But let's be careful about how far you go with that, little jump. Yeah. I think that's right.
I don't think anyone disagree on that. Like, what I think people are missing is, or I think what people want is that you need to be able to play more than just the ESL Impact League, because that's all they played, right? Let's look at the facts. That's all they played. That's what got them there. And okay, fair enough. Let's adjust that, like you're saying, right? They might have played some DreamHack Opens, but again, only women's only tournament, right? It's too big a leap, in my opinion. Let's say it got them to top 50. There's still a big leap, right? Now they have to play some CCTs and stuff. I don't mind that. Super, let's go for that, right? And then they can qualify through that like everyone else. Okay, let's go.
And hopefully that is what happens. Because I just checked True as well, because probably should have done this before, to be fair. They did only play women's tournaments, but I will also 100% guarantee that this team, if it was invited, it would have played CCTs. It probably would have played like these relogs and whatnot. And now they're going to be invited, and now we're going to get that. And that's going to be awesome. But let's also...
But they can also decline, right? Like, okay, let's be honest. We don't know if they got invited. We don't know if they got invited and declined and stuff like that. We don't know that, right? It's speculation.
But let's give them the benefit of the doubt, because there's no reason to decline those things at the time, right? let's not assume that they're being disingenuous. Until we are shown that. I think that's fair to say. I don't think that these teams were invited. Maybe it was their fault because they didn't reach out because they didn't think that they would be invited. Maybe there's a lot of things that could be going on. But if they didn't play,
sure.
I will assume that they were not invited. Right?
But they are gonna play some. I saw like they're playing CCT now, I believe, right?
Exactly. And that is
against
awesome.
Katowice.
And that is awesome. And we will all tune in for that. And we will all be like, hey, hell yeah, let's go. We want this to succeed. And then we'll talk about it if it does or if it doesn't. That's all. That's really all there is to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, guys, thank you all.
We are not misogynistic here.
Yeah, thank you all for tuning in to Counter-Strike's official panel of what to do with women esports. As you can see, we're all incredibly qualified for all of these things, especially with our balls. So yeah, thank you all for tuning in, and yeah, make sure you've subscribed and all that stuff. If you've been here until 2 hours and 14 minutes, then dude, awesome. I don't know why, but I appreciate that.